The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
This is Hikaleo.
I am ELP.
And this is Keeping It Strong Style.
We love you.
Mwah.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy, Donovan, and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll review nights 3 through 6 of Best of the Super Juniors 31 and cover all latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the network's podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tee store, prowrestlingtees.com/social suplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. We are streaming live right now on patreon.com/KI Strong Style. For IWGP subscribers, you can access the live stream, ad-free audio, and bonus content by subscribing at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. Young boy, how you doing, man?
We are live streaming, and I am logging my calories.
Nice.
You know, the grind never stops, Jeremy. It's difficult to juggle and balance all that we do here. So, you know, when I find a moment to make sure that I'm up on my caloric count, I have to take that opportunity. And sometimes that's when you're going through your spiel at the beginning of the show. That's my opportunity to, log a couple numbers, crunch some stuff, get it all, jotted down so that I don't forget later. But now my full undivided attention is here on the show. Thank you to everybody that's joining here in the chat, and I'm ready to talk Super Juniors.
Yeah, man, you gotta log those calories, eat your vitamins, say your prayers, make sure you're a big, strong boy for Keeping It Strong Style.
Yeah, what you said.
All right, so like I said, we're gonna jump into Best of the Super Juniors. We had a lot of shows to cover, but first, I think we should start off with the big news that a lot of people are talking about that does relate to Best of the Super Juniors. So the Best of the Super Juniors Finals is set to main event New Japan Pro Wrestling Dominion. This announcement came out during night 5 of the tournament that the tournament finals would main event the show, meaning that Jon Moxley defending the IWGP World title against Evil will be the semi-main event. And young boy, we had a ton of questions here about that matchup and just a switching of things. So I think we should just go through the questions, because I think a lot of the talking points will be in the questions.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, Jeremy. The last couple weeks, I've been in training for my new advisory position with my company, which juggling that and keeping up to date on Best of the Super Juniors has taken up a lot of my time. So I'm not up to date on like podcasts. I'm not, if you've noticed, I've been a lot less active on Twitter. I'm sure you're probably glad for that. I'm not getting us in trouble or anything of that nature. And I don't know what the public feeling is about this announcement. Of course, I heard about it and I'm ready to unpack it, but I'm not sure what people are thinking from all the various different camps and, the AEW camp, the Pro Gatekeeper camp, the Shinny Freak camp, like all these different people. I don't know what they're thinking and what their feelings are, but I've got opinions.
Well, yeah, and a lot of other people have opinions too. So let's jump into these questions. Oh, first, Rambone's in the chat.
You're gonna have to clue me in on what the prevailing thought and feeling is, because I'm unaware.
Okay. Rambone's in the chat. He says, is Mox going to have to go on excursion to Mexico after getting voted out of the main event?
That's hilarious. For any listeners that are not clued in, actually, did it happen? Yeah, it did. Naito, early in his career, headlined a Wrestle Kingdom against Okada for the title after he won the G1. He lost that semi-main event, and instead of going on last, they went to a fan vote, and the Intercontinental title headlined that year's Wrestle Kingdom with Tanahashi and Nakamura on top. And then later on, Naito went on a excursion to Mexico and sort of developed the LIJ character that you know today, abandoning the Stardust genius. So that's kind of a funny comment there.
Well, our first question does come from Rambones here. He says, do you believe the recent announcement that the best of Super Junior Finals are the main event of Dominion is a last-minute change, something that was always a potential option, or the plan all along? If it wasn't the plan, do you think the decision means more marketable stars like Hiromu and Despy need to be in the finals to carry that card?
That's a great question. And I hadn't really considered whether or not this was the original plan or an audible. I don't know. Did that fan poll that popped up on Twitter, did we talk about that last week, or did that
we didn't talk about it on this show. I did talk about it on one of my news updates last week behind the paywall, $5 tier, grade 1 tier, Patreon. I did 2 news updates last week, so I did talk about it there.
Okay, great. Yeah. So if you guys are throwing down your $5 or your $10, you guys are getting that bonus content, which is awesome. But if one's to believe that the company is reactionary to that online discourse, then it would seem to me that this was not the plan and that it was a shift. But I don't know that to be, for certain. What do you think?
Yeah, so I kind of think it was the plan, and shout out to friend of the show, Joe Lanza. He talked about this today behind their paywall, Voice of Wrestling Patreon, on one of their flagship pluses, and kind of breaking down kind of the timeline on whether or not this was a plan, a shift. There's a lot of people saying that, Mox is not a draw, and that's the reason why it was pushed to the semi-main event. And, he was kind of pointing out that, from beginning of the tour, it was announced that the finals were going to happen at Dominion. I think even before, in March, whenever they announced,
it was way before.
Yeah, whenever they announced the lineup, it was announced that the finals would be taking place at Dominion. So that was out there early, and we know typically Super Juniors has its own final show, and that final match main events that show. So obviously now with being a Dominion, I think it's definitely plausible that that was a plan from the beginning. And you look back at the whole Mox argument he broke down in some of the draw, how Mox has been drawing well in the U.S. and on the Japanese shows that he's on. So I don't think it was necessarily Mox is not drawing, so we need to do this main event. I think it's a tournament finals, and it would kind of make the tournament secondary if it was not on the main event of the show.
Well, I wish I had prepared, and because now I'm starting to think back, and I'm like, did the Super Juniors, finals, did that always headline even on shows where potentially the title, was also defended? Because that did occur, I believe, sometimes, I think in the 90s. I'm thinking back to the 96, 97 Super Juniors. Maybe someone in the chat could look, I don't know. But
Lanza went back to 2009, and every finals had been the main event of the show. It was on, and somebody gave him a stat that since 1997 that the finals has always been the main event on the show it's on.
But it's not often, or even common that the IWGP title would be defended on the same show. My feeling is that typically you would expect the IWGP title to be the final match, regardless of tournament finals or not. That's just kind of standard practice for New Japan, just going back for pretty much forever. I could see it both ways. I do think that with them making that announcement way ahead of time, that this final was going to take place on Dominion, they obviously had some sort of plan in place and a reason for having the finals at Dominion as opposed to on their own show. And New Japan loves to split these up and do as many dates as they possibly can to milk as much business as possible. I don't think it was necessarily that the company who had the foresight was thinking, oh, Mox isn't a draw, so he needs the added assistance. I don't think that's the case, because so far, while I wouldn't say that he's been, outstanding in terms of business in the States, he's been very strong, and he's been about status quo with what you would come to expect in the buildings and the configurations that they've run in Japan. So I think he's doing a good job in terms of business. Probably not too different from where they were with Naito on top, honestly, which people probably don't want to hear that, but that's what the numbers show. I do think, though, the point that Rambone brought up here, the idea that going into this tournament, I think you and I, Jeremy, when we briefly talked about Super Juniors, we discussed a lot of different people having an open potential to get into the finals, especially with them doing the 2 people get from each block format. But now with them headlining, it does seem like, and I'm just going to say it seems like it'd be very unlikely that anybody other than Hiromu and Desperado headline the show, because that's just the biggest match that they have for the juniors. That's something they've headlined in the past that's done big business. And Hiromu's been talking about headlining a major show as a junior for years and years. So there's a lot of, storyline there.
Yeah. Also, that's been a big thing for Hiromu, and it could be a thing of where they knew that, all right, we're booking Moxley versus Evil for the title match, and kind of having some foresight, knowing our diehard fan base is probably not going to love that match. It's probably going to be a ton of interference. We're going to end with heat. And we don't want to end Dominion like that. We want to end with a great main event, a classic main event, and with Hiromu and Despy. And I think with it being the main event, I think that's pretty much almost a lock now for that match to be the finals, or at least one of them is going to be in that final.
Yeah, the only thing that potentially leads me to think that maybe it was a happy accident, but the timing is very dubious at best. The idea that they only made this announcement after a fan poll came to, prominence online, where a lot of people were stating that they'd rather see the Super Juniors final headline over Jon Moxley versus Evil Watanabe. Maybe that was always the plan, but it's just, I don't know if that's coincidental, if it's an actual reaction. It's strange timing, to say the least.
Yeah, that's the one thing for the camp that's like, oh, this was definitely a change, was, that fan poll from that blogger came out last week, had about 350 votes, 80% wanting to see the Super Junior final. And also you had Kadani quote tweeting that person saying, we need to take this vote seriously. Also, Kadani had another tweet later on in the week saying, we heard the feedback from fans and we apologize, and there's a lot of changes we need to make, blah, 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 blah. So all of that, it's like, it's lining up at the same time that this announcement is happening too.
Yeah, and that's very strange to kind of get that reaction from the company. I mean, I don't know. There have been plenty of times over the years where fans have been unhappy with things and have complained, and there wasn't like an official response or something shifted in a monumental way like this. So I don't know. I think it's strange. It's hard to get a read on it. And it does really fan the flames for the camps that are completely against the idea of Jon Moxley versus Evil. And I don't know, Jeremy. Last week you and I felt like we were devil's advocate, and we kind of played that role, and we said like, well, look at the booking layout where everything is, and it kind of seemed like they were going this way. Plus they had already sort of shown their hand a little bit when they did the tease at the show in Ontario, California. What was it? Resurgence?
Yeah.
But listening to, I have listened to a few other people, and like everybody else is like outraged, like completely and utterly outraged at this match, which like, I'm wondering, like, are you and I just like, are we at a point where we're just like, it is what it is?
Yeah, I think that we've kind of, bend the knee to the fact of Evil and House of Torture. And, but I think, like we said last week, what were the realistic options?
My question is, did we go too easy on this shit? Everyone else is fucking pissed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's easier to be pissed when you're not like watching every show and not seeing the breakdown and the booking of what's been happening for the last couple of years now. And yeah, I mean, I don't love the idea that Evil is challenging Jon Moxley. I would, heck, put in, a young lion in there.
Bolton's right there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously there are better options to have a better title match, but there's a lot of moving pieces between, what are we doing with Zach? Or are we saving him for later? Umino, Tsuji, when are we going to pull the trigger on these guys? And they've already challenged. There's a lot of like moving pieces going on. And then you have Moxley as champion. There's so many factors that go into who should challenge at Dominion. And if it's not going to be the main event, I mean, at least it looks like we're going to be slated to have a great main event of the show now.
Yeah. So maybe I guess we could move on to the next question. Great. Thanks for that one.
Yeah. So next from Wukon 901, it says, how do you guys feel about the BOSJ Finals being the main event for Dominion?
I'm a little conflicted, to be honest with you, because number one, not that I don't think that the juniors deserve it and that they won't have a great match. I'm sure they will. And it's a change, and it's exciting whether it was pre-planned or not. Either way, it is a positive sign, because if it is something where the company's reacting to the fan feedback, then that's positive. Or if it is something where they already had the foresight to begin with, that's also positive. So on the one hand, I do think it's good. At the same time, the traditionalist in me is like, well, Evil or nah, the IWGP title is the IWGP World Heavyweight title. And, I'm not going to go into full blow, like, blowing my gasket sort of thing and being like this, I'm not going to make the same arguments I made for the Will Hobbs match, but it is another case of where the title is somewhat being devalued, which is not what you want for the main prize in your company. And whether that's just bad booking or whether this was necessary because of the outrage, or whether they just realized like they're not going to send the fans home happy with that match, or I don't know. I'm nervous Evil is going to win the title at this point, but I don't know. I'm again very conflicted on it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that I like it just because the alternative was Evil closing another Dominion. So from that standpoint, I am happy that we're going to get a great main event. It's going to be Super Junior Finals. I think it's a little bit of an interesting twist to not have the winner challenging the junior champion at Dominion, because I feel like that kind of goes by quick. So now it seems like there's going to be some buildup now between when the winner can actually challenge, give them a little bit of chance to breathe, and actually kind of carry that flag and trophy around before they immediately challenge.
I guess, but it's going to be against Show most likely.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Besides that, I'm fine with it. Obviously it'd be a lot different if it was like, Mox versus Saber, and it's like, really, we're not going to main event with that over the finals. So, but I think this is the right call for right now. Def Triangle 720 says, with Evil and Mox in the semi-main, do you think we could see Evil appear on Dynamite to add something to their feud?
I would highly doubt it.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if they did that. I think the last angle was a resurgence, and then we'll get back and forth promos. He also asked, do you think the company might sacrifice a new final instead of Hiromu versus Despy, with it now being the main event at Dominion?
It's possible. And we're going to talk about those scenarios because we're probably a couple weeks out at this point, and that picture is becoming a little bit more clear about what opportunities are in front of them. But I don't know, man. Like, when you're talking about a show of that magnitude, and that's one of the reasons why I kind of don't like it. And I was going to make this point earlier. It slipped my mind. Once you say that the main event is the finals, now everything has shifted, or at least you would assume it has, to where they're probably tipping off their hand that it's going to be a match of major stars, which isn't necessarily the worst thing, but we've seen Hiromu and Desperado many times in the past, including in the tournament finals of this tournament. What, twice before?
Yeah. Something like that. So this would be like the third final with those guys, if in fact that's what they decide to do. Maybe they're going to go a different way. I don't know what the ticket sales of Dominion look like if they've already started. Maybe they're pulling a "we already got your money" kid. I don't know. Yeah.
But it seems like they're gonna need a strong drawing match, and that's the biggest match they have.
Yeah, and I haven't looked at the ticket sales to see what it's at right now, but there are a lot of title matches on that show, and so potentially there is a chance that they could pull a surprise final and try to bank on the drawing power of all the other title matches. And we know that there's a Naito match that hasn't been announced yet. The full card's not announced. So they could potentially try to rely on the drawing power of it being Dominion, the second biggest show of the year traditionally, and then having all these other big singles matches. They could potentially take a risk on pushing somebody new in that final.
Yeah, I know that the tickets are on sale right now, but I think they just went on sale like 22 hours ago, I believe.
Yeah.
No. April 15th, they went on sale.
Okay. Def Triangle also asked, do you think it was pre-planned with having the BOSJ final main event over the world title, or the company actually saw that no one was excited about another Evil main event? Kind of covered that.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but the one thing I will say is there is an opportunity to play into the storyline implications of the idea that they didn't go with the world title in the top spot, and maybe that being because of either Jon Moxley and or Evil, and whatever kind of promos they're able to cut off of that, whatever story they're able to tell based off of those results, which could be interesting.
Yeah. This last question here. Do you think we may get some surprises at Dominion?
They've done a lot of surprises in the past at Dominion, so I don't see why it wouldn't be, on the table.
Yeah, I definitely expect some kind of angle or surprise. I mean, Forbidden Door is going to be right around the corner as well. Building a G1, I'm sure there's going to be some kind of angle that takes place at that show. Next set of questions here from Les Commission 7252. How important is it for the juniors from now on to the rest of the year to make an impact after being given the main event at Dominion? Is this a sign of something to expect in the near future for juniors to main event big time shows?
It's a step in the right direction. It's not like in the entirety of the history of New Japan, they've never done anything like this. They have, But it's been a long time since juniors were on top in a major show. Granted, at the same time, the catalyst behind this is the finals of the Super Juniors, which happens every year. And it's not like I'm not seeing necessarily the path for them to continue this trend, throughout the rest of the year, where we see them like headline KOP, King of Pro Wrestling or something like that. I don't know, but it's got to start somewhere if it's going to happen at all. And this is a good step, but I don't anticipate this becoming a regular thing personally.
Yeah, just because, like we've been saying, Hiromu and Desperado are the two top stars. There's only so many times that you can do that match before, it gets ran to the ground and has diminishing returns. So I have a hard time seeing a bunch of junior main events that, King of Pro Wrestling and Power Struggle and even Wrestle Kingdom. It's just hard to believe right now. He also asked, should the company not resort back to Hiromu versus Desperado in the main event at Dominion? They could make a new star in Kevin Knight or Francesco Akira against a veteran and former champion in El Desperado or Kushida. Or they can do this, and it might be a bad idea, but have Show go to the finals, and the main event could be the BOSJ Trophy and the Junior Heavyweight Championship.
That's an interesting possibility. I hadn't really considered that idea. That would certainly set a new precedent. They've never done anything like that. And most major tournaments, there is no title on the line whatsoever. I mean, I'm thinking back, and like the only time that they've done anything like that, other than like crowning an inaugural champion, is like maybe the 1983 IWGP league when Hogan beat Inoki. But that basically be it. I don't know. I'm hesitant to say, like, do I think it would be great if they pushed like a Kevin Knight or Francesco Akira? Sure. But if they're going to do that, whoever that is, then it's got to be somebody that they absolutely have major plans and, really plan to put, a jetpack behind that person and shoot them to the moon.
It can't be a Master Wato situation where, he won last year, got the big, strap on the back for that win, but then immediately lost to it was Hiromu, right? He lost to, and then after that, it was like he was nowhere, and then he got hurt. So I don't think that Super Juniors really ended up benefiting him at all. And so, if they are going to go with, Kevin Knight, Akira, Fujita, there's a lot of young guys that are, doing really well in this tournament. If they are going to go with one of those guys, then there needs to be a full-on plan. They need to win the title. They need to be, bookmarked for Wrestle Kingdom. They need to get behind that person.
Absolutely.
Hawaiian Punch BV says, do you think that Hiromu will interfere in every Moxley title match so he holds the title to Wrestle Kingdom? It would be Hiromu's best chance to main event Wrestle Kingdom with a junior title match.
What?
So I think he's trying to play on the joke of the camp that thinks Mox can't main event shows. So if Mox holds the title to Wrestle Kingdom, Hiromu could get the main event because, quote unquote, Mox is not a good draw.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. So he's going to interfere in all of Moxley's matches to ensure that Moxley retains. That way, when Wrestle Kingdom comes around, he's the bigger star and he can headline as, challenging or defending the junior title.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Last set of questions here from Trish from the Trish and Sarah Wrestling podcast here on Social Suplex. First, she says, if it was Naito versus Evil up against the BOSJ main event in a fan poll, which would win?
I would have to imagine that it would be Naito and Evil, honestly. And that's not to say that Jon Moxley isn't doing good business, but there are two things. If you read the comments from the fans about this, this match in particular, the negative comments, it wasn't just that that there's a large contingent of fans that don't get or don't enjoy the House of Torture act, although that was a huge part of it. There's also the sentiment that like you have an outsider, they're holding our title hostage, they're not working here regularly. That sentiment definitely exists. So when you combine both of those things, it's two combustible elements for the domestic audience. And again, Twitter is just a sample size. I mean, it is interesting that the idea that they would even shift anything based off of the opinion of 300 people.
Yeah.
Like that's not indicative of, I mean, if you look at the business numbers, the metrics, like Jon Moxley is doing a good job. Is he like, a gangbusters draw doing like, top end business? Like, no, but nobody is, including Naito. But he's right in line with what they've been doing with Naito on top for the first, quarter of the year. So, but yeah, if that fan poll was put up, I'd have to imagine with Naito and Evil there, you don't have two strikes. You just have the one strike. And, Naito's a darling of that, domestic audience. So I'm sure that probably would have won.
Yeah, I think if honestly for the poll to be fair in that situation, I think you would have to know what the final junior match is. Because if you did a poll of Evil, Naito, and we know it's Hiromu Desperado, I think it would be a little bit closer.
Potentially. But I can't think of any other match that would be on the table from the juniors that would be a close call at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Trish also asked, what are the positives and negatives of this run ending at Forbidden Door or continuing after? I think she's talking about Jon Moxley's title run.
That's a great question. So, I mean, I think the positives in the short term are a boost to business, at least specifically in the States, which has been needed. And I mean, that's a solid run. If you're just looking at the business they did in Chicago and then in California, that's a nice little house. And then whatever house they draw at Forbidden Door, which if, let's just say hypothetically it's Naito versus Mox and Naito wins the title back there. That's strong business that they did. You get Jon Moxley, you give him a bit of a gold watch. Not that he's not a hard worker, doesn't deserve it, but it's a little bit of a gold watch. And you get him into the legacy of your title, which is a positive. Put some Western eyeballs on the product. I mean, those are all positives. The negatives to me, I feel like the actual kayfabe of the story of the work that was presented isn't the strongest. For him to turn around and drop the title, I think the two most likely contenders you would have, given it's Forbidden Door, would either be Zack Sabre Jr. or Tetsuya Naito. And it is a fairly short title reign. It's not necessarily chock full of great matches. And there's not an incredible narrative that you can look back at and say, like, this was necessary. This was really, really successful. I mean, on the business front, it probably is. But I feel like, and you're going to have these negatives and positives extend beyond Forbidden Door on the flip side, because if Mox continues to hold the title, it might not be the business sensation that it has been in this short term. It might struggle to do good business beyond, going to say like January 4th. But now you've opened up the potential for like the Shota Umino run, which could narratively be, much stronger. So it's tough. I think there's drawbacks and positives both ways.
Yeah. Forbidden Door just doesn't seem like the right place to drop the title for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. And I feel like it's kind of almost like a cheap kind of loss for him to drop it in the United States, especially if it's going back to a guy like Naito or somebody that's established like Zack. And obviously we're all in the camp of Zack getting a title, but I don't know if like winning at Forbidden Door is the right spot for Zack to win the title. And I feel like the more beneficial thing is for him to go to Wrestle Kingdom to do this whole Umino storyline. But then some of the negatives there, like, all right, that means G1 season, like, is Mox going to do G1?
He would have to. It would be detrimental to the company for him to hold the title and stay stateside and not be involved in G1. That would be a huge misstep.
Yeah. And then if he's still a champion in that time period, what does he do in the fall? Like there's not a ton of credible challengers for him already. So like, who do you pull out at Destruction and at King of Pro Wrestling at Power Struggle? Like, you have to give him at least 2 to 3 more defenses before you get to the Dome. And like, are there actually credible people that you want him to beat in that time frame?
Yeah, that's a great question and something I hadn't really considered as well. The other thing too is like he has this match with Takeshita coming up fairly shortly, right?
Yep, at Double or Nothing this coming Sunday.
Okay. And then within a very short amount of time, he has to turn around, come to Japan, fight Evil, and then he's turning around and what's the time frame between Forbidden Door and Dominion? Isn't it like just a week?
So Dominion is June 9th, and I believe Forbidden Door is June 30th, if I got that right. Okay,
so there's still some time.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was thinking, like, what if the narrative, remember how, like, Naito, part of the reason that you could believe that he dropped the title is, like, he had that busy schedule. He was going back and forth, and he defended the title. He sort of overextended himself. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a similar narrative for Moxley to turn around and do the same thing. He's racking up these defenses, whether it's on, TV with AEW or these big pay-per-views. And then, Forbidden Door comes and Naito comes a-calling.
Rambo's went a good point in the chat. It says hard to see Mox off AEW TV for an entire G1 run during TV rights negotiation season.
Yeah, and that's probably the major reason why you would expect him to drop the title before the G1. And it's another reason why I'm kind of nervous about the prospects of him and Evil and the potential that Evil might win this title, because I think it's not a 0% chance. I think it's actually fairly high.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are kind of counting Evil out, but I do think there is a higher than most people want to think likelihood of him winning that title. The one thing that hurts Evil's chances is that Forbidden Door is right afterwards, and we've seen that Tony Khan does not really care to have Evil on his TV or on pay-per-view. So I think that he would probably lobby for Mox to keep the belt and to do the IWGP title match at Forbidden Door.
House of Torture and Evil are going to be on Forbidden Door. And I know that people have said, like, Tony Khan's not a fan of them because they haven't done shows in the past. And maybe there is some truth to that, but like, he sure trusted them enough to work with Jungle Boy and align themselves in that way. And you think that they're not going to turn around and come back for Forbidden Door and team with either, Jack Perry and or potentially the Elite? That's probably going to happen.
Yeah. I can definitely see this being the year that they finally get on that show. So you have Evil's not defending the title there, then there'll be some kind of multi-man, like the Elite and House of Torture team up against, whoever team AEW could be for that night or whatever.
Okada and Evil Dream Team. Last week, I'm so disconnected from AEW right now because I've been so busy. Like last week, you were like, obviously this is happening. And you mentioned something that was New Japan adjacent with AEW. I don't remember what it was. And I literally, like, in the back of my head was like, I had no clue that was happening. Like, whatever it was.
Rambo says Gato doing terrorism booking is a real thing.
Yeah, and you do have to wonder if this potential shift, whether it was orchestrated or not, if this is lending credence to one hand not knowing what the other is doing when it comes to the rumors of the booking, and the office being at odds with one another, on the domestic side. And is this more evidence to point in that direction? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's going to wrap up our discussion here on the news of the Super Juniors Finals being the Dominion main event. And speaking of Dominion main events, I'm going to be doing a series on the Patreon called the Dominion Deep Dive, where I review every Dominion main event, starting from the very first one in 2009. Shout out to Rich Latta. He's already made a fire theme for that mini series. So looking forward to getting started on that. I already got a lot of research done on episode 1. So that will be hitting the paywalls, probably the first one next week.
Awesome.
So now let's move into tournament action here. Actually, I guess a few questions before we jump into looking at all the competitors to kind of get like an overall feel. So first from Def Triangle 720, does it feel like this year's Best Super Juniors is missing something? It's going good so far, but it feels like something is missing.
Yeah, excitement. The first 2 nights were, and I know that we kind of glossed over it a bit last week. We had to cover a lot, so we didn't get a chance to really dive deep into those first 2 nights, but those were some really good shows. I've actually heard like a lot of almost like show of the year buzz for night 2, and I'm not quite there. I don't think that I perceived those shows in that way, but they were very good opening night shows for Super Juniors. And then from night 3 to night 6, granted, there have been interesting things. There's stories, there's progression, there's good action, but there's just not like the kind of like visceral excitement that we've had from years past when it comes to Super Juniors. And when it comes to the outsiders, even though a lot of them have had good showings, I would say that there's a lack of major excitement, star power, from the outsiders. In the past, there have been some like really big names that have come in for Super Juniors. I think back just a couple of years ago, and you had all those champions from all those different companies, and it was like, holy shit, how are they going to handle the and granted, they got champions like, Blake Christian's the GCW champion, Hayata's got a title and everything like that. But it's, and I'm not saying anything negative about their work. They're having good matches and they're telling good stories, but they're just not huge known commodities on an international or like domestic scale. It's just not, they don't feel like, they're not like dream matches where you're like, oh my God, I think the Western audience, the only person they're doing that with is like Ninja Mac.
Yeah, there is no Will Ospreay, there is no Shingo Takagi, there is no Dragon Lee. It's not 2019 Super Juniors where you had that all-star lineup there. But yeah, I do think that there is, a little bit of a lack of buzz and excitement for the tournament overall. I do feel like night 2, has been universally praised, and it was a very fun night, and there's been a lot of good matches, but I think one of the things that's hurting this tournament is the 10 match show. I think we talked about it a little bit last week, but a lot of the match times, there's matches that get cut down, and there's like 5. I mean, we're seeing like 3 to 5 minute matches in some of these matches, and they're not being given the opportunity every night to go out and have a crazy 15-minute tournament matchup. We did see a few single block nights, but historically you would get each block having their own night, and those 5 matches got a chance to breathe.
Yeah, and I was a little surprised at the match lengths for the singles matches on those single block nights as well, because granted they were in smaller markets. They weren't necessarily trying to go all out when they're in the gymnasiums, you know what I'm saying? But they didn't have like long, lengthy, epic matches during those shows either. So yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, it hasn't been bad by any means, but this is not the best of Super Juniors that I'm used to seeing, where it's like banger after banger, 4-star match, 4 1/4, 4.5. Like that's not happening, at all.
Yeah, I would say, I haven't really done a ton of ratings for this tournament, but like I would say like the average is like 3.5 to 3.75. Like there's not a ton of like 4-star matches.
I'd go that high. Being pretty generous there, Jeremy. Three quarters.
Deflation, you know. Def Frango also asked, so how far would you compare this year's BOSJ to New Japan Cup?
They're apples and oranges, but comparatively speaking, I would say this. In the same way that the New Japan Cup was, when you compared it to other New Japan Cups, there were clear things that you could see that like were issues in terms of like the pacing of the tournament, the booking of the tournament, the laying out of the brackets. You could kind of see the lack of major star power. Some of those similar themes, you know, also persist into this Super Juniors when you compare it to, you know, even just a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Let's see. Next question here. Let's Commission 7252. Who has looked strong in the BOSJ tournament so far?
Blake Christian.
Yeah, also, definitely from a point standing, but even performance, I think he's looked really good. I think guys like Kevin Knight and Kosei Vegeta are young guys that have been really showing out. I feel like Kushida has really turned it up for this tournament as well.
Yeah. And I mean, Robbie isn't necessarily probably from a point standpoint having the type of tournament he would like to have, but I think he's been very impressive, very consistent. Drill Maloney is dropping everybody on their domes.
Yeah, and he was great on commentary too.
Yeah.
Let's see. Rambone says, has anyone's performance in the tournament so far surprised you, both for better or worse?
Yeah, I would say that Kevin Knight has surprised me. Not that I've ever been down on the guy. I've always been a fan, but the amount of growth and progression between this tournament and his previous tournament, it's night and day. He's really, really coming into his own. So I think that's been one of the positive signs in this tournament so far.
Yeah, I think Kevin Knight's definitely somebody that's really upped his stock from last year. And like I mentioned earlier, I feel like Kushida's been a surprise. Like we saw him last year and he was fine. He had the whole like losing streak thing, and I figured, he's replacing Yo, which they have pushed Yo, but I didn't expect him to come out here and like, kill it or anything. But I feel like he's been really, really good throughout this tournament so far.
I guess not from a quality of in-ring work standpoint, but TJP basically being all but eliminated at this point in the tournament has been a bit shocking.
Yeah, that's been some weird booking there with TJP. Also with the whole captain storyline, and the Hayata match for sure. I was like, he has to win this one. But yeah, it's so funny that gave him this losing streak, and also I think there's a comeback coming, but it's just been kind of weird to watch.
I don't know if there is or not. I don't know. There could be something more to that story beyond just that.
Yeah. Discord Daddy MJ says, has this year's BOSJ surpassed your expectations? I've been impressed with the quality of the tournament. You guys missing any butt stuff?
Yeah. No, I'm not missing Taguchi. I don't want to say anything like too negative and be like, this tournament sucks, because all these shows are like very easy watches. The wrestling is very good, but it's like a low ceiling, high floor. It's not, they're not exceeding my expectations necessarily, but they're also not having outright bad matches or anything like that.
Yeah, I think I have maybe like one match at 4-star right now. And everything else is like that 3.5. The high end stuff is in that 3.5, 3 3/4 kind of range.
Hiromu and Show sucked.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that was that was absolutely awful. But yeah, I think it's been a fun watch. It's been easy, but like you mentioned, it's not 2019, it's not 2018. Like we're not getting these 4.5, 4.25 matches every night.
It's not 1994.
Discord Daddy also says thoughts on the crowds thus far. I feel like the crowds aren't meeting the level of work we're getting.
I would say that's mostly true. Some of the, I don't know. Actually, I'm going to hold my tongue there, but yeah, I would tend to agree.
Yeah, I think also the night 2, the Corkin crowd was super hot. They were gasping for every match screen that came up on the Tron. But yeah, other nights, and they've been in some of those other, more smaller towns the rest of the tour. So yeah, it hasn't been like super loud, crazy reactions. The next question here from Navith is thoughts on workers outside of the promotion so far. I think you touched on that a little bit.
Yeah. Teton is he's kind of shared talent, but he's mainly a CMLL guy. He's been, pretty awesome throughout this tournament. Hayata, I don't really, again, I can't claim to be a Noah expert. So we had a lot of, naysaying going on about his work prior to entering the tournament. And I'm not going to advocate for the guy, but he also hasn't necessarily done anything to where I'm like loathing his matches. He's kind of just there, he's not that different from like Bushi.
Yeah, he's a jag for me.
He's just a guy,
and he's getting the job done. Like, yeah, I don't hate him or anything, or I don't love him, but he's there. He's fine. He's serviceable. He's having nice little matches, and that's it.
But I'm wondering if like his gimmicks are different or presentation or whatever in Noah, because the outcry about him being in this tournament was pretty high. And he's not really doing anything super negative. He's just there. So I'm wondering if like when he's in his home promotion, he's the House of Torture show guy. And, he's not doing that sort of thing because, House of Torture already exists here. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a look at the blocks now. We'll go through the standings and talk about each competitor's night throughout the tournament. So first up, we'll start in the A block. On top of the block, we have Blake Christian. He is 4-1 with 8 points. On night 3, he defeated Yoshinobu Kanemaru. On night 5, he defeated Teton. And then on night 6, he got his first loss to El Desperado.
Yeah, so Blake Christian has had a very strong, commanding lead early on in the tournament, which is, that's good for quite a few different reasons. Number one, like I mentioned, he is the GCW world champion. You don't ever know how much, especially since they're not like a partnered promotion, you don't know how much credence the company's booking is going to have or take into consideration when an outside champion like that is booked. I don't even know if that really is the reason why he's been booked strong in the beginning. But, Blake is one of these guys that was a cornerstone of the New Japan Strong product in the early goings. Obviously, he got signed to NXT at that certain point and he left. But he was a guy that was, kind of, I believed, always earmarked to potentially come to Japan and work here. And it didn't ever happen for him and was probably somewhat disappointing. And after leaving WWE, he chugged right along and kind of rebuilt a home for himself there in GCW. It's funny because the commentary team has brought up that match at Warrior Wrestling that he had with Ospreay as being like a turning point for him. And at the time when we reviewed that match, and I put the match over, but I also said that there was just such a strong, clear delineation between the skill level and experience of Will Ospreay and Blake Christian. And that had always kind of been one of my major sticking points when it came to Blake Christian in the past, was like all the talent in the world, lots of upside, but loosey goosey, not the most tight worker in the world. And kind of like cosplaying what what a wrestler should be. In these matches, now, granted, I don't like Blake Christian's. I don't like his HBK gear. I don't like his look right now with the, it's kind of scummy with the mustache and the afro and all that. And granted, I understand he is working heel and he's kind of towing a fine line here because he's having to mix in being a high flyer, being impressive, trying to get over, but also trying not to be liked and to be despised. And it's kind of been a weird nebulous space for him to exist in. But his work has really improved. I mean, really, really, really improved. Like the tightness of it. And I was last week, I think I was a little negative on his first night in the tournament, but I feel like he's really caught like pace and found his footing. And he hasn't had too many like main events or anything like that, but he is one of the stronger performers night in and night out in the tournament. And I'm a little surprised at the booking, but they always have front runners who slow down as the tournament goes on, and we're starting to see that. But he's been very good.
Yeah, and he's also a Converse guy. He is a part of the Ring of Honor roster, so I know a lot of fans think that has to play into the booking. But
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, that's what some fans are saying, but I don't know. I don't know how much a ROH guy that's barely seen really weighs into their booking, but. I do think Blake has really dialed in since last week, and it's looking really good. I think the work has improved, and I think he is really playing to the crowd very well. And a lot of people talk about House of Torture. Oh, they're getting heat and they're have the real crowd interaction. Well, I feel like Blake has done a lot of little things throughout his match to get heat that have been good, and he's getting in the crowd's face and doing the boo and making fun of the crowd, and he's repositioning the referee to get the advantage. There was one match where he did that to get hit the low blow with the rope. Like he's doing little things that are not so egregious to get heat, but he's still doing it. And he switched from being like all heart to all heat. And you mentioned he's still being he's doing the topes and he's doing all that stuff, but he's also
hitting 450s.
Yeah, his finisher is a 450, but he's also been very aggressive. In the Desperado match, he worked the arm over a lot of the match, and he was doing like the springboard kicks to the arm and stuff like that. And yeah, I think he's really upped his game here.
I think these guys have to kind of do that when you have such established chicanery when it comes to House of Torture and the Bullet Club Juniors in the tournament who are already so over the top. So if you're going to work a heel gimmick in the tournament, you have to kind of find a different way to portray yourself as opposed to the over the top, nature of those groups. So yeah, some of the stuff he's doing is very smart. It reminds me of a lot of the type of cheating tactics you would have seen in like World of Sport, some stuff that's like sneakily done, and the fans see it, but the referee doesn't see it. But the referee's not having to get bumped. He's not having to have someone hold him and all that. Like he's doing it in smart ways, and he's getting that heat. The match with Desperado's easily, I think, his best match in the tournament so far.
Yeah, I think one of his best matches. I think one of the best matches overall in the tournament. There's a lot going into that main event, with Blake being undefeated at the top of the block. But then, Desperado finally giving him that first loss. And I think that's also going to be a big, tiebreaker thing coming down the line on who advances this loss right here to Desperado, with Despi having that tiebreaker win over him. But yeah, that was a really good match. The Teton match, it was only 7 minutes and 21 seconds. It was kind of short, but that was a fun matchup too, and kind of surprised Blake got the win there over last year's semifinalist in the tournament. But that was a fun matchup, and then the Kanemaru match, having to deal with the the heel master tactics there, and something that we always see every Super Juniors is Kanemaru always, targeting the knees of his opponents, even in, the undercard matches, the few that we've had so far, he attacks the opponent's knee. And so Blake had to kind of overcome, he had like a heel versus heel matchup there, and he had to overcome the heel tactics of Kanemaru, but he got that win there and is 4-1 with 8 points. We had a question here from Hawaiian Punch BV, did New Japan promise Blake Christian a BOSJ spot after he turned on Master Wato? After Master Wato got injured, did they not have the heart to cancel his invite? Honestly, I don't remember Blake turning on Master Wato. Do you remember that?
Nope. I don't even remember Master Wato at all.
Yeah, somebody in the chat wants to help us out here when this interaction was between Wato and Blake Christian, but yeah, I don't remember that. Barry Walsh says Blake Christian on 8 points and Stardom being demanded to have a title match on AEW that they wanted to later is evil, wrong, and Tony Khan is the real Prez.
I'd forgotten that Blake Christian even worked for AEW. Like, I don't know. Is it possible that, something was going on there? I mean, it's not impossible, but I just don't imagine that Tony Khan has been putting in the calls to Rocky, to tell Gato to put his boy over from ROH, tapings.
Yeah, never mind Forbidden Door. We don't have to have calls about that. I'm concerned about Blake Christian, the guy that's on my ROH paywall that not everybody watches. I need to make sure he looks strong.
They weren't that concerned about
Utah.
Wheeler Utah a few years ago when he was being pushed strong. Like, he literally, I don't think he ever really recovered from coming back from Super Juniors. Like, that time off that he went to go work Super Juniors, like, he never regained the level of push and popularity that he had entertained prior to that tournament. So I don't know. They seem to be okay with letting him do jobs. So I doubt that they're really that concerned with Blake Christian.
Yeah, and Wheeler was pure champion in that tournament.
Yeah. Doesn't Blake Christian job a lot in ROH?
I couldn't tell you.
I don't know, but I would wager to bet he does.
Yeah, he probably does. All right, let's talk about the next competitor here. Teton, 3-2 with 6 points. On night 30, he defeated Hayata. On night 5, he lost to Blake Christian. And on night 6, he lost to 100 proof Clark Connors.
I'm just looking up Blake Christian's Ring of Honor stats. So, yep, he lost there, he lost there, he lost there, he lost there, he lost there. Yeah, bro, this guy loses a lot. Like, a lot. So, yeah, no. Oh, man. So, yeah, Teton. Yeah, Teton, it's interesting because, last year he was an unexpected finalist against Wato. They did, they subverted the expectation, put two guys in there that you never in a million years would have expected, and they had a blowaway final. And Teton still has enjoyed, a status with New Japan, being a member of LIJ, but the amount of time we've seen him in the company since last year has been kind of few and far between, and most of his time has been spent in Mexico. And he's done really well this year. I think the thing that he enjoys is a sense of believability as a winner, because last year was sort of sneakily done. You did he crept up and you didn't really expect him to go into the semifinals, and it sort of just happened out of nowhere. But this year, we sort of understand that he is somewhat a top guy in the division, and he's been beating most everybody that he's been beating with that. What's it called? The Llave Immortal?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, his version of the noodle lock.
That's what it's called? The Llave Immortal?
Yeah, pretty sure it is, yeah.
I feel like it's called something else. Is it not? I don't think it's called Llave, is it?
I thought it was.
I don't know, man. I'm terrible with move names. But anyways, Teton is just, honestly, he's not having blowaway matches, but he's just on a different level when it comes to body control and aerials. he's one of, if not like the top, luchadors, and he's so adept at not just the lucha style, but also combining that into that lucha resu space and being able to kind of work that into the context of like a New Japan style house match. And I don't know where they're going with him in terms of the point totals. Like, he's still pretty strong. The Clark Connors defeat, you kind of and then the Blake Christian defeat, like those two losses were sort of unexpected, but he was on a roll there just prior to that.
Yeah, picking up a straight 3 straight wins. He won on night 1 and 2, and then also on night 3, and then eating 2 losses there. Also, that Blake Christian loss is also going to probably play into top of the block scenario there. But yeah, I think he's looked really good, and I feel like even though he hasn't been on a ton of New Japan shows, I feel like the star power and kind of aura from being in that finals last year to what he's been doing in Mexico has really helped elevate him. He does feel like a star. I don't know if he's on the level of maybe like Dragon Lee was, but he does feel like a really kind of top star from Mexico. I feel like the crowds really take to him, and he's more credible now compared to when he was a few years ago. And I feel like he's a very believable to win a lot of matches. He's been very exciting. His topes, he has one of the best like suicide dive topes. And like you mentioned, working in, the Lucha Resu, doing the Yave, and, out of this run here, I would probably say these are all pretty short matches. I mean, the Blake match was 7 minutes and 21 seconds. The Clark match was 7 minutes, 52 seconds. And then the Hayata match was 11 minutes and 34 seconds. But I think probably the Blake Christian match was probably the best from this week's stuff up here. And so, yeah, he hasn't had that chance to really show out.
And that match had a lot of excitement going into it because both guys were undefeated, and sort of like you said, they're going to have top of the block implications. So that also, one thing that they haven't mentioned too much, but is worth noting is Teton is still the CMLL World Welterweight Champion, has been for like over 1,600 days. So, fuck you, Roman,
Acknowledge Teton.
But Teton, I feel like if we were in a more booming period, he would be a bigger deal because, like you mentioned, like Dragon Lee, he had the advantage of being there just when business was, at a peak. And Teton, like one thing I don't like from this tour, they changed his music, and I don't like the new music that he has personally, but his like gear, like some of the robes and masks that he's brought out, like he's hard, bro.
He blinged out. Yeah, he's looking great.
I would like to see him, do. That's the tough thing is there's so many guys I do like in this tournament, and I want to see them all do well, but at the same time, like it's just not feasible because someone's got to do a job. So
yeah, I would love to see him get to the semifinals again and do something big. But yeah, there's a lot of guys here that are tied with him right now at 6 points that could potentially get to that semifinal spot. And I feel like, he might be on the outside looking in come the semifinals.
And they wrestle 9 matches?
Yeah. So he has 4 more matches left.
So, I mean, last year to get into the semifinals, you needed either a 7-2 or a 6-3 record, essentially. So, we're at the halfway point of the tournament, a little bit past that. And so these guys here, from Teton on down, they need to win 3 of their next 4 if they're even going to be in contention.
Yeah. So another guy that's at 3-2 with 6 points is the Jet, Kevin Knight. Night 3, he defeated Kosei Fujita in 9 minutes and 5 seconds. Night 5, defeating El Desperado in 12 minutes and 1 second. And then on night 6, he lost to Kanemaru 6 minutes and 50 seconds.
Yeah, I guess it's not super surprising because it's like you understand that at a certain point, guys like Kanemaru, guys like Bushi, they're here to play spoiler, and that's all well and good. But it did feel a little bit like a letdown to see Kevin Knight have that great performance against El Desperado, pick up that huge win. And that's sort of like an attaboy. That's a pat on the back. And that was really unexpected it was a huge surprise. But then the next night he loses to Kanemaru, which, granted, anybody can lose to Kanemaru. That's the beauty of him playing spoiler. But I was a little disappointed there, especially with him stringing those two victories together, back to back, him beating Kosei Fujita and Desperado.
Yeah, it was a little bit disappointing, but there was kind of a story there. Also, Desperado really worked on the leg, trying to set up the numero dos, which also we know Kanemaru always targets the leg, goes for that figure four. So that played into it. The knee got wrecked in that Desperado match. He kind of skated through, and then, he was fresh pickings for Kanemaru there that following night, and Kanemaru was able to kind of finish that work and tear up that leg to get that submission victory. And it kind of plays into the whole thing of sometimes you have to tap out early to preserve yourself later on in the tournament.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely strategy in this thing, but Kevin Knight, and I don't want to reiterate all the same things, but I don't know if I would say he's the strongest performer in the sense of, like I said, he's improving vastly, and he's always been impressive. I'm not knocking the guy. Would I say that he is the level of performer in this tournament of, say, Blake Christian or Teton? In my book, no. But he's having better matches than those guys. His ceiling in terms of him finding a way to pull out great performances from the guys that he's working with is actually, he has more aptitude right now so far in the tournament at having really good matches. He might be the guy who's having per capita the best matches in his block.
Yeah, I feel like he's picked up a lot of momentum. Like you mentioned, he's definitely improved compared to last year. And I feel like it's around the board, his look, he has better gear now. He has the new music. I feel like the wrestling's gotten tighter. Also, he's still doing all the cool, high flying jet stuff, the time to fly, Hurricane Rana. He's doing these big topes and obviously the big springboards and leapfrog and stuff like that. But I feel like in between all that, he's doing a lot of just good wrestling and good selling. Desperado was tearing up that leg in that matchup, and that played into the Kanemaru matchup. And I just feel like all around, he's gotten a lot of support. He's really getting people into those matches, and I feel like that, especially that Desperado match, the fans were into that, and they loved seeing an underdog win. They really got behind him, and it felt like a really big deal of him beating Despy.
Absolutely.
We had a question from Def Triangle 720. It says, do you think Kevin Knight will get a shot at the junior title this year?
I don't know, but I mean, I would love for them to really, go all in on this guy. He still kind of persists in this strange, ill-defined space, because I don't know what his contract status is between New Japan and Impact. It seems like it's, TNA. You want to say TNA all these years, and then you finally get used to saying Impact, and then they change the shit back to TNA. Basically what I was saying though is we don't really know what the status of his role is with these two companies. I guess maybe he might be signed to both companies and kind of quasi shared, but representation is an important thing. And when you think back to how many great African American or Black juniors have sort of existed in this company, there have been some, but not nearly enough. I mean, I think of there's Ricochet, there's ACH, Too Cold Scorpio, Leo Rush, but not that many. And when you think about how many of those guys held the junior title, it's I don't think any of them did.
Yeah, I don't think they did. Yeah.
So, it's probably about time that they probably built up, one of them, us.
Us. But yeah, I think that Kevin Knight, it could be a great guy to be a junior champion. He's one of those, LA Dojo guys, and we've seen in the past, like sometimes those guys kind of get treated as the black sheep, and they're hesitant to push some of those guys. But I think he'd be a great guy to give a shot at the junior title, give him a challenge. And yeah, I think there was rumors at the beginning of the year that New Japan didn't re-sign him, and he was mainly working Impact, which he's done like the beginning of the year. But yeah, I don't know currently what the contract status is. I would definitely try to get that guy locked down and have him come in and do more tours. He's very exciting, gets over with the fans, and I think he'd be, a great guy to kind of have in the Rolodex of juniors. Next up, El Desperado, also sitting at 6 points. Like we mentioned, on night 3, he defeated Bushi. Night 5, he lost to Kevin Knight. And then on night 6, he defeated Blake Christian.
Despy is Despy. He's pretty much the measuring stick for the block. He's taken a couple losses that were sort of unexpected. But he's won the bigger matches where it's like been necessary. I don't want to say like Despy is lazy, but he's selective about when he turns it on in these tournaments. And oftentimes, especially since he normally does go to a semifinal / final situation, I expect for those bigger main events, for those to be the times where he, really turns up. I don't know why him and Bushi went on last on night 3, other than the fact that it was just Desperado's the star and he was in that match. But like Bushi was like 2-7 last year.
Yeah.
But probably didn't need to happen. But, Desperado's having a good tournament, and I think he's going to be one of the 2 semifinalists out of this block regardless.
Yeah, I think especially, with him, how he lost the title to Show, I think there's a redemption story there for him. So if it came down to either him or Hiromu is going to be the one that makes it, if not both of them, I think it's definitely going to be him in that main event.
Yeah, and him beating Blake Christian, with Blake going on such a strong string of wins, that's a huge tiebreaker for him when it gets down to, the nitty gritty.
Yeah, like we mentioned, that was one of the better matches of this week, probably the best match of this week in the tournament so far, and that was a really good main event. There was a lot of stake there, so yeah, I think that win's going to be very important moving forward. We had the Kevin Knight match was a lot of fun too, and then the Bushi match was just kind of there. So moving on to 100 proof Clark Connors, also sitting at 6 points. He defeated TJP on night 3. Night 5, he lost to Kosei Fujita. And then night 6, getting another win by defeating Teton.
Yeah, the Teton win was a big one for him because he, up to that point, was sort of having a middling tournament, I liked it's funny. I really liked the TJP match. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, it was blow away, but I enjoyed it. And I saw a lot of hate for that match and I didn't totally get it. Granted, it didn't necessarily hit the the lofty marks that these two guys have had with one another in the past. I thought it was still very good. And I thought the Kosei Fujita match down the stretch really picked up. Clark Connors is he's another guy where they're not lacking for talent in this division. They've got a lot of guys. It just depends on whether they want to put the juice behind them. And Clark Connors is one of those guys where they easily could. I think that with him and Drilla, though, because they are the junior tag champions, obviously it's highly unlikely that we're going to see either of them head into the into a finals situation, but they're going to definitely set up some sort of, contendership for the junior tag titles coming out of this tournament, which is, good for him.
Yeah. We talked about that. Or we'll talk about that in the B block. They set up, Vegeta beat him here. And then, that's going to set up him and Eagles to potentially challenge Connors and Drilla for the junior tag team titles. But yeah, I thought Clark looks really good. I really enjoyed the Teton match. And I think, again, the closing of that showed another kind of great heel misdirection, pulling. He said he accidentally pulled the mask off, and it was plausible the way Teton ran in and the way Clark was trying to defend himself. He pulled the mask off, which allowed him to hit the spear and then the that elevated DT. I'm blanking on the name. The full clip.
No chaser.
Oh yeah, no chaser. Yeah. It's no chaser.
Oh, I was right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I never know this shit.
Yeah, he hits the no chaser, and so yeah, that was another kind of great heel misdirection without having to make the ref look completely stupid and having all these run-ins and interference. So
it also shows like some desperation on his part too, that he doesn't get left behind in the point standing. So kind of, stooping to a desperate measure there.
Yeah. And I also like the TJP match too. Also, there's a lot of history there. Those guys had like a little kind of mini feud on New Japan Strong before Clark joined Bullet Club. It was kind of like a master apprentice kind of deal there. Then also with Clark turning and being a part of Bullet Club, Catch 2-2 and the War Dogs have feuded. So there's a lot of history there behind those guys. And so yeah, him picking up that win there over TJP was good to see, and that was another good matchup. So then moving on to Kosei Fujita, the Japanese young punk. He's sitting at 4 points, 2 wins, 3 losses. Night 3, he lost to Kevin Knight. Night 5, rebounding by defeating Clark Connors. And then night 6, he lost to Bushi.
Yeah, that Bushi loss is a big one. At this point, again, he's sitting at 2-3. Is it impossible mathematically that guys like him or Hayata or Kanemaru Bushi are totally eliminated? Like, no, but they're going to need to finish at minimum like 6-3. So they're all already at 3 losses. They really can't afford another loss. So they're going to have to basically string together 4 wins back to back, which is highly unlikely that all of them will be able to do it. If any one of them has a shot of obtaining that, I would say Kosei Fujita is the most likely, but I probably don't see it. It looks like with him and Eagles both, beating the junior tag champions in their respective blocks, that sets up a title shot for them. That's probably the next program for those guys. I'm not saying he's not going to continue to have a learning experience in this tournament and not still have great matches, but the idea that he is undefeated for the remainder it's not likely. So I think from this point, I'm pretty much ready to count out everybody else in the block from like Fujita, Hayata, Kanemaru, Bushi, and obviously TJP's like done.
I don't know, man. We'll get to him in a second, but I think that he's going to get to 10 points.
Who?
TJP.
Well, he's only got 4 more matches.
Right. He's got 2 points now. So if he wins 4 more, he'll be at 10 points.
And so at 5, you think at 5 and 4 he'll get through?
Yeah.
Possibly. They didn't go that way last year, so there was already sort of a precedent set there. But like, if he did go through, that would be him going through with the lowest amount of points allowable to get through. But I'm not a math wizard, but there is a lot of parity in this block, so it's probably plausible.
Yeah.
For me, I'm gonna just stay by Old Faithful and be like, you lost 4 times, you're done.
Rainbow says in the chat, Big Fuge feels like he has won big in this tournament already. No matter the outcome, his stock is rising.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, we didn't mention his new look. He has, the new gear, the long tights. He has his own music now. It kind of feels like
I mentioned it last week.
What's that?
I mentioned it last week.
Yeah. So it kind of feels like more of a fuller graduation, so to speak, than what he was doing previously. And yeah, I think he's a special dude, and he's another one of these young guys that I would get behind and try to make him, your next future star of this division.
Yeah, I think the future is very bright for Kosei Fujita, and he's having a great tournament. I just don't think that this is his tournament this year in particular, but it's already a big win, like Rambone said.
Yeah. So after that, we got the GHC National Openweight Champion Hayata, who's also at 2-3 with 4 points. Night 3, losing to Teton. Night 5, rebounding by defeating Kanemaru. And then night 6, he lost to TJP.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. When the tournament first started and he picked up his first win, I was thinking they were going to book him strong because of his title status within Noah, but so far, no. And I've already mentioned on the show that I'm not overly impressed with Hayata, but I'm also not super down on him the way I expected to be based on his preceding reputation.
Yeah, like, is he Will Ospreay? No. Is he Taguchi? No. But he's there. He's been fine. He hasn't done anything where I'd never want to see him ever again.
I mean, I'd be fine if I didn't.
Yeah, I'd be fine, but I'm not to the point where I'm starting a campaign of ban this man from pro wrestling forever.
It is funny. I've seen people talking about whether or not they should have brought in Dragon Daya or whatever. I'm like, we need to bring in Hayata. I've heard that they got some raw, Noah Juniors over there. Why they gave us this one? Come on.
Yeah, where's Dragon Bane and Alpha Wolf at?
Bro, they're so awesome. I would love to see those guys work with Maloney and Clark.
Yeah, that'd be dope. But yeah, don't have much more to add about Hayata here. You mentioned I feel like him being an open weight champion would have lent more credence to him maybe getting booked a little bit higher, since he is also facing heavyweights in Noah as well. I think he defeated a heavyweight to win that open weight title.
Cheated.
Yeah. So yeah, he's been fine here. I don't really have much to add for him. Also sitting at 4 points, Yoshinobu Kanemaru. Night 3, he lost to Blake Christian. Night 5, he lost to Hayata. And then night 6, he defeated Kevin Knight.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say here. I mean, Kanemaru has basically provided what I would expect out of him at this stage in his career. Good matches, great heel work, giving some learning lessons to, he's the Jericho with the learning tree, bringing guys under his learning tree. But he's essentially here primarily as a spoiler role.
Yeah, and I think, it's kind of been, what you would expect from Kanemaru in this tournament. He's working the knee over in undercard tags. He's attacking the knee, going into the tournament matchup. He's blowing the whiskey out, and a lot of that's backfired for him thus far, in the Blake match and the Hayata match. But yeah, he was able to take advantage, kind of pick the bones of a, injured Kevin Knight on night 6. But yeah, and he's, been, in between 6 and 8 minutes, not super long, gets in, gets out, does his thing. And yeah.
Yeah.
Then also with 4 points, Bushi, night 3, he lost to Desperado. And then he picked up 2 wins in a row. Night 5, he defeated TJP, and night 6, defeating Kosei Fujita.
He's had some really great masks.
Yes, yeah. The masks are always great. Very surprised that he beat TJP. It was 2 minutes and 55 seconds. So it's one of these kind of flash victories been doing in the tournament. And I for sure thought, all right, here's where TJP's comeback's going to start. And then Bushi was like, nah, I'm getting this one.
Jeremy, I early on in the history of the show, I said there's an old adage, you don't hook with the hooker. And I used that same, terminology to, I don't remember who it was. I think it was Tanahashi was wrestling somebody. It was probably Okada, but I was like, you don't dragon screw with the dragon screwer. Well, in this case, you don't mist with the mister. Okay. And I know TJP just started shooting some mist, but Bushi has been shooting miss for a while. You don't miss with a mister, and that was his undoing. And that's why he lost in under 3 minutes.
Yeah. If this was a video game, Bushi's miss stats would be at 10. TJP would probably be at 7. You know, he's still learning. He needs to level up the mist game. But yeah, Bushi was one step ahead of him there.
I wonder what the training game to master the mist maneuver would be, you know.
Oh man, a little mini game to advance the mist. But yeah, surprising kind of short victory there. The Fujita match was pretty short also, 5 minutes, 32 seconds, kind of a quick win over there over Fujita, which is also, I mean, a little bit surprising because it seems like Vegeta's had some momentum here in some of the matches he's had, but you have to give Bushi something.
The only thing I'll say is they worked me early on in the lead up to this tournament. They were giving Bushi wins, and I was like, you know, they might be building to something here. They might have something, and then it's like, no, Bushi's just Bushi. He's doing the same shit he always does. Like, I got worked. I'm not, you know, too big to it.
The thing is, like, everybody else who's had a streak, it's kind of played out. Like, we'll talk about Hiromu, like the losing streak played out. Ishimori, his winning streak prior to tournaments played out. Like, everybody else has been like, their previous like tournament stuff has been playing out except his. Like, he had that big streak of wins before tournament, and yeah, now he's just like eating L's.
Well, we'll talk about TJP. I would disagree. I don't think TJP was coming off big wins coming into this tournament, and now he's taking a lot of losses. So he also is, you know, converse to that.
Yeah, let's talk about him. Yeah, he's 1-4, 2 points. Like I mentioned, night 3, losing to Clark. Night 5, losing to Bushi, and then night 6, finally picked up his first win of the tournament over Hayata. And yeah, like you mentioned, you know, he beat Taichi in that Just 5 Guys United Empire multi-man matchup, and he's kind of turned things around. That was the one big win. He was on a losing streak, had that big win, and then went to this tournament here, and now it's back to losing.
Yeah, and you know, it depends on what you see here. It could be one of two things. If you think, like, I understand, Jeremy, on your end, you feel like they've started him off with like a similar to like Show in the past, where he's on this big losing streak early on, and then he's going to turn around and win all the rest of his matches and, you know, mathematically get into the semifinals, which is, you know, it is plausible. But my feeling is, where does that lead? You know what I mean? Like, just looking at it from a storyline perspective, do I think TJP is one of the guys that is going to final the tournament? No. I know they could give him all these wins and then he gets into the semifinals, but what does that prove? You know what I mean? Like, they heated him up to lay down for somebody in the semifinals, and it's like, yeah, he ends with a good record, but they've got a narrative going of him being on a losing streak. I think that there's more strength narratively in the storytelling with him, again, having proclaimed himself the captain of United Empire and having gotten all the support from his guys, and then to not be able to carry that weight in the tournament. It makes more sense to me for him to like literally be the bottom of the block, and for them to turn that into something. Where it's going, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I'm not going to sit here and say, like, I'm not going to fantasy book it because it's a little outside of my depth. But I just think that there's more creative juice to him losing as opposed to miraculously turning the tournament around at this point.
Yeah, and I think, too, there could be a story of where he turns it around, but it's a little too late. Like, he can get to 10 points, but if everybody else that's above him wins, like, yeah, he could be out, and maybe it's a moral victory for him, but he still doesn't truly prove that he's the captain of the Empire.
I guess that's the case, yeah. I feel like it sends a much stronger message that he's definitely not the captain.
Yeah.
And I wonder where they go, like with the inner turmoil of the group, and where does he go from there, and what, I don't know. I feel like him turning things around and getting close but not reaching the top is too middle of the road. Like, it's too parody. I feel like if he's going to fail, he needs to really, really fail. And then they can, similar to, like, remember when Sonata, prior to turning things around, he was on that losing streak and he was losing.
Mm-hmm.
And then that turned into something. And I'm not saying they're going to heat TJP up and turn him into the ace of the division and put the belt on him for the rest of the year like they did Sonata. But I just think that they did this for a reason. I feel like there is so much more strength in the storytelling if he just is literally he's under Bushi. And when you're under Bushi, that's the definitive, like, you cannot be the leader of this group. and then where do we go from there?
Yeah. And I know in the backstage comments, he's mentioned he will help me win, which I think is kind of alluding to, busting out
God?
the the Oswong, which,
oh my, I hope they don't do that.
But my thing is, and this kind of goes back to like Finn Balor and NXT. It's like, if you have like this alter ego that you always win with, why would you not just do that from the beginning? Like, if the mask is going to help you win, just put it on, be the Oswong, and it gives you superpowers. So like, put it on and win the tournament.
What if there's a cost to accessing those powers that we're just not privy to? Something that is disturbing, like a sacrifice. He's got to kill somebody.
And
that's
where the blood mist comes from.
That's where the blood mist comes from. And it's just,
Oswong lore only here on Keeping It Strong Style.
How, it's just like he doesn't have virgins laying around that he can just slaughter all the time. It's only for special occasions when he really needs to call upon the power of the Oswong.
Yeah, Rambone says in the chat, unless your name is Jushin Thunder Liger, you need to cut the spooky supernatural shit out and just wrestle.
I disagree. If it was cool, then I would like it. It's not. It sucks.
Yeah, like, and going back, like,
cool supernatural. He's just lame.
Back to like Finn Balor, like, he had put on the paint like for the NXT takeovers, which looked cool, and like he was.
I love the demon Finn Balor. I love it. It's so cool. I don't care. That's what I'm talking about. His shit's cool.
Right. He looked cool presentation. Like the Oswong, he has the Party City mask. He's shooting the mist.
It's lame.
Oh man. All right. Well, let's move on to the B block here. So top of the block, Kushida, 4-1. He's got 8 points. Night 5, he defeated Francesco Akira. That was night 4. Night 5, he lost to Robbie Eagles. Night 6, he defeated Taiji Ishimori in 2 minutes and 33 seconds.
Yeah, bro. Kushida, completely undoing the analysis that we had going in. It figures that they would do this, because every year that he was in this tournament, I would always be like, you can't out Kushida. You just never know. It's Kushida. And then he's had terrible point, victories in the last couple tournaments. So much so that he wasn't even invited in this tournament, which people were kind of outraged about. But granted, he's replacing Yo. Very likely he's doing very well, and it's kind of turned to his favor that he's very likely just gotten Yo's booking, and this is probably where Yo would be right now.
Yeah.
But narratively, it makes sense, because Kushida never stopped being Kushida. They just stopped booking him like Kushida. He's always been this good. He was this good in the last few tournaments, and they turned me by setting the precedent of him having super low performing tournaments in terms of the points, where I was like, yeah, that's where they see him now. And that's just what it's going to be. And then, I think that you had been a little bit more dialed in, and you're like, I don't know, he's got Yo's spot. So I don't know how much they're going to shift it around. And boy, did they not shift it around at all. And I'm glad for it, because Kushida is still Kushida. Yeah. He's older. Yeah. He went to WWE and all that, but his haircut has been terrible recently, but the story of him regaining his prior form and taking all these young cats to school has been fucking awesome. I loved the finish with Francesco Akira with the Spanish fly, fucking
Hoverboard lock.
I love that. Him and Robbie Eagles, very similar in structure and style to the match that they had with one another in Australia that we reviewed, which was very high level. And one of the most legendary rants and most angry moments I've ever had on this show was the year that I freaked out about the terrible Taiji Ishimori Kushida match at Wrestle Kingdom. And it just felt cathartic to see Kushida roll this dude up and unexpectedly in 2 minutes and 33 seconds. So yeah, I have no notes, Kushida all the way. I would love for him to just be the guy that goes through.
Yeah, it's been a breath of fresh air for him. And I don't know what the deal was with the booking last year, but this year, he's wrestling with a purpose, and it seems like this could have been Yo's booking, but he's looked great here. He hasn't rested on his laurels, and that Akira match there, the ending there, he does a super hoverboard lock and then into the hoverboard lock on the floor, gets into a tap out. That was great. The Eagles match, that was great too. I think this was better than the Australia match. And again, you had the whole limb work there with Eagles targeting the leg and Kushida targeting the arm, but Eagles got the better of Kushida there. And then
because it was in Japan.
So what?
You just liked it better because it was in Japan.
And then the Ishimori match, that quick head scissors got him on the mat, stayed on him, boom, 1, 2, 3. I was shocked, but quick victory there. It seems a lot of people really love this flash victory here.
I love the flash victories in the tournament. I'm not going to complain about those whatsoever. Kushida has also defeated Hiromu and Taiji Ishimori, which are going to be two of the higher performers when it's all said and done. So those are huge tiebreakers. I do feel like the Robbie Eagles match, had he beat Robbie Eagles, we'd be like, hey, it's a lock. This guy's going through. But that one's probably going to be a pretty important one later on down the line. But so far, so good for this guy.
Yeah. I would definitely recommend people watch that. Both the Akira match and Eagles matches were really good outputs there. And then if you want to see a flash win, watch the Ishimori match. And the only thing I would say about I do like the flash wins, but I feel like him and Ishimori have the potential to have a great match. So maybe give him a flash win over somebody else and let those guys kind of go out there and have a great match. Maybe
like 6 years ago. 2024, I don't need to see the epic Ishimori Kushida match anymore. I like Ishimori, but I don't love Ishimori. He's not my guy. I'm glad he got rolled up,
Well, speaking of Ishimori, he's 3-2 with 6 points. Night 4, he defeated Robbie Eagles. Night 5, he lost to Francesco Akira. And then, like I mentioned, night 6, he lost to Kushida.
Yeah, I mean, Ishimori is a guy that, for my money, is likely. I don't know for sure, but he's very likely to be one of the semifinalists that go through. He always does well in these tournaments in terms of point totals. I mean, he's having a good tournament. I don't know. I've never been that high on Ishimori in New Japan. I feel like a lot of his matches are wash, rinse, and repeat, and I don't necessarily love the formula to begin with. But I think if you're a fan of Ishimori, I mean, the Eagles match, they got a lot of time. That was really good. The Francesco Akira loss was it was great for Francesco Akira. I think it was a little bit unexpected, and but not as unexpected as that Kushida win.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that Akira match there. That was a fun matchup from night 5. And the Robbie Eagles match was pretty good as well. And there's a lot of history there with those guys, and when Eagles was in Bullet Club. So yeah, Ishimori is one of the guys where prior to the tournament, he was winning a lot of undercard matches, a lot of singles matches, and so that momentum kind of rolled into the tournament here, and he has 3 wins and just now eating 2 losses. And like you mentioned, I feel like he's a guy that's still going to be a player going down to the last few nights. But yeah, that loss to Kushida though really hurts his chances, and depending on what happens to these other guys that are at 6 points, that could be the thing that really pushes him out. So moving on to the next guy, the ticking time bomb, Hiromu Takahashi, also with 6 points. And Hiromu picked up 3 wins in a row here, defeating Dragon Dia on night 4. Night 5, he defeated Sho. Night 6, he defeated Ninja Mac.
Yeah, so, I mean, Hiromu had gone winless in singles matches all year long. He finally turned around his fortunes, beating Dragon Dia, beating Sho, and beating Ninja Mac. So stringing together a good string of victories. The Ninja Mac and the Dragon Dia matches were both really fun and very good. And the Sho match was very likely the worst match of the tournament. And if it's not, then it's definitely one of the worst main events for the tournament. Just so much comedy, ha gaga bullshit that has plagued New Japan over the past few years. And Sho, we'll get to it, but Sho, for me, this is his worst showing in a Super Junior, and that's really saying something. But yeah, Hiromu is on that redemptive path right now.
Yeah, that Sho match was absolutely horrible. The whole thing of, he tied up Hiromu in the back and he wasn't coming out at first. And so Sho was trying to get, the forfeit victory. And it was also Hiromu's hometown. It started
at the beginning of the show too.
Yeah, he attacked Sho, or Sho attacked Hiromu before the show started and tied him back up. And then, of course, Hiromu was like handcuffed through the whole match and wearing this shirt that Sho put him in, and just all the ha gaga from House of Torture. Yujiro was out there, and Bushi came out, made a save for Hiromu, and eventually was able to get the win.
Yeah. Dragon Dia, I felt like Dragon Dia and Ninja Mac both got a great opportunity to kind of shine against Hiromu in their matches.
Yeah, like you said, those were really fun matches to watch.
Yeah, they weren't great, but they were fun. And, they didn't overstay their welcome. They were both, fairly short in length and, good rebounders for Hiromu to kind of get back in the win column.
Yeah. So then Robbie Eagles, also 3-2 with 6 points. Night 4, losing to Taiji Ishimori. Night 5, defeating Kushida. And night 6, defeating Sho.
Yeah, so Robbie didn't start off the tournament the way I'm imagining he would have liked to from a kayfabe perspective, but picked up 2 of the more important and, bigger wins in the last couple nights. Robbie is sort of like the other coin of Ishimori for me. Not to say that he isn't always innovating, but a lot of his matches in New Japan are kind of like wash, rinse, repeat. They're very similar. The difference there is I love what he does. I love his match structure. I love his style, and I can watch those matches all day long. So, I said in the other block that I kind of felt like Desperado is sort of like the pillar of that block. In a certain way, I kind of feel like it's unsung, but Robbie is kind of that same similar role in the B block. And you would kind of think it's Hiromu, but I feel like it's not right now anymore. Like Hiromu is like obviously the biggest star, but Robbie's like that measuring stick in this block so far.
Yeah, I think Robbie is super underrated and doesn't get enough credit for his great in-ring work. And yeah, I do feel like he's one of the kind of established veteran guys who's, done a bunch of tours, done a ton of tournaments. And yeah, I think he is kind of the measuring stick when it comes to this block. And the Kushida match, like I said, I like that match better than the Australia match. The Ishimori match was pretty good. And then the Sho match, it was a show match, but at least Eagles won, and that potentially means he can get a future junior title shot.
Oh boy, is that where we're at? All right.
So moving on, Drilla Maloney, one half of the junior tag team champions. He's also 3-2 with 6 points, and he also rolled off 3 wins in a row like Hiromu did. So on night 4, he defeated Doki. Night 5, he defeated Dragon Dia. And night 6, he defeated Francesco Akira. in 4 minutes and 38 seconds.
Yeah, Drill Maloney. What is the Drillakilla? That's his finisher, right?
Yeah.
He's turned the Drillakilla into like his own version of like the RKO out of nowhere. Like almost sort of reminiscent of like DDP, where DDP could hit the diamond cutter out of nowhere. Like this guy has found ways, like crazy inventive ways to get people into the Drillakilla position that you just would never expect. And it's been pretty fucking awesome. Like, for all those years ago when Shingo was in the Super Juniors, people were like, there's no way he's a junior. Like, there's no way Drilla Maloney is like, this guy's fucking huge. The Francesco Akira match was very interesting because he attacked the leg and he tapped out Francesco Akira in it. I don't know if it's in the notes or anything, but it looks like he suffered a real injury. So
yeah, I have it here. So yeah, it says Francesco Akira, who was scheduled to wrestle on May 21st, and Hayame has sustained an injury to his left knee and will not compete in his scheduled tag team match. We apologize to fans for looking forward to seeing Akira wrestle and appreciate your understanding. So they changed the card for that matchup, and it's potentially, he could be out of the whole tournament.
Yeah, and Drilla was a guy that last year when he was in this tournament, I think that we were some of the first ones to say like, yeah, he's not having like a blowaway tournament, but there's something there. And if he just taps into it, like he could really have something special here in New Japan. And now we're a year out, and that's exactly what's happened. And, I don't expect him to be in the same realm points wise as like Hiromu, Robbie, Ishimori, and Kushida, but he's having a great tournament.
Yeah, he's been a lot of fun to watch. He killed Dragon Dia with that Drillakilla. And yeah, the Night 6 match, kind of similar to the Kevin Knight Kanemaru thing where, Akira has this leg injury. And so, Drilla just picked the knee the whole match and got him to tap out in the middle of the ring. The Doki match, that was another fun match, kind of the first kind of rebound win there for Drilla. But yeah, very intense, very hard hitting, kind of that energy that him and Clark had last year where they had that wild double count out brawl. He's really kind of honed in, established this whole Drilla Maloney personality for New Japan, and he knows who he is. And yeah, he was awesome to watch. He's even in these short matches, just super intense. And he was on commentary on Night 6, and he was absolutely hysterical. He was popping me with him and Walker on there.
The one thing, though, that I was a little disappointed about, I'm not disappointed with the outcome of the Francesco Akira match, and especially if it's covering for like a shoot injury. But when you look at, you mentioned Drill Maloney versus Clark Connors last year, that was like a hoss fight. And that's sort of the energy Drilla brings to the block. And then you kind of look at his remaining matches, and there's good matches on the horizon, but there's nobody with that fire that can kind of match his energy. And Francesco Akira, obviously he's a lot smaller, but he has that fiery feistiness. And I sort of expected that to kind of be like a draw, like a, kind of drag out brawl. And it just it didn't happen. And now it looks like there's nobody else left in the block unless, we'll see. Maybe him and Hiromu will do something, but for the most part, there's just nobody that can really match him on that level.
Yeah, and especially, him and Akira had that big feud this year, and part of the dog pound cage match where he jabbed a spike in Akira's eye. So yeah, I was hoping that there'd be like more, like you mentioned, back and forth there, but also there's either a story or a real injury with Akira that they wanted to play on. And I believe that Drilla does have a main event with Hiromu, so yeah, that could be the big spot for him to really show out for the tournament. So moving on to Doki, who's also 3-2 with 6 points. Night 4, dropping to Drilla. Night 5, he defeated Ninja Mac, and then Night 6, he defeated Dragon Dia.
Yeah, so Doki is in a similar range as some of these other guys, but I'm not entirely inspired by that point total because you look at the last 2 victories and it was over Ninja Mac and Dragon Dia. Those are kind of gimme matches. He's got a tough road ahead of him for the remainder of the tournament, and I'm not confident that they're going to have him be one of the guys that goes all the way through. He's having a good tournament, and he's beating people with the Doki Choki. I mean, in the past, that's sort of just been like a teaser of a submission hold, but they've really established it as something that he can actually beat people with this year. And if he hits the suplex de la Luna, he beats you, but his accuracy with that maneuver is not the best.
Yeah. Kind of some short matches here. The Dragon Dia match, 5 minutes and 28 seconds, was able to, throw Dia around, get him into the suplex de la Luna. The Ninja Mac match, 7 minutes and 49 seconds. Good back and forth there. Not a whole, it was a fine matchup there. Ninja Mac did his thing, but yeah, Doki got the win there. And then the Drilla match was pretty good. And so, yeah, Doki overall is doing really well in the tournament. He had that big win over Hiromu last week, and he's beaten Hiromu twice this year. And, he's sitting, in a big tie for second place right now in this block, which is, the best booking he's had since being in this tournament. I would really love to see him advance at least to the semifinals. But like you mentioned, there's so many guys here at the top that I have a hard time seeing it. I feel like he's going to be, either a tiebreaker loss that's going to keep him out, or he's going to be like 5-4 and just miss the cut.
Yeah, I agree.
Then up next, we have the IWGP Junior Champion Show with 4 points, 2 and 3, defeating Ninja Mac on night 4. Night 5, he lost to Hiromu, and night 6, he lost to Robbie Eagles.
I don't know which way to go with this to talk about it, whether I want to talk about like the kayfabe anomaly that this is with him being the champion and him, being so far down in the points at this point. Like, it's just weird. And I'm trying to analyze it from a kayfabe perspective. And then there's the fan enjoyment quality standpoint, which is also shitty. Which has just been chock full of shenanigans, like so much more than in the past. And I know every year he has cheated and he's used the wrench and he's interfered in matches and he's done stuff like that, and that's nothing new. But like, this year's worse. And he's the champion, and he's eaten 3 losses, and you have to imagine he's probably going to turn around and put together quite a few wins to have him finish with a more respectable point total, because he is the IWGP Junior Champion. But it's just so weird for them to have him on the chopping block this early into the tournament with this many losses.
Yeah, well, it kind of plays into the fact that he's not a credible champion, how he won the title by count out, and he's just kind of been sliding through this title run. So in one way, I kind of get that, but yeah, he is a champion, and I could see him reeling off the last 4 wins and ending up being 6 and 3, and then not making the semifinals due to a tiebreaker.
Here's the thing, though. Like, okay, logically, does that story logically make sense? Does that compute? Sure. Is that the story we should be telling? Like,
he shouldn't even be the champion.
Right. If we're to the point where we have to sacrifice the quality of the juniors and the credibility of the title, all in the name of storytelling, like, I'm not one of those Shinihan freaks, bro. You're talking to the wrong ones. That's not us. I'm not going to sit here and talk about the character progression and the motivations and unpack all that shit. I'm just going to keep it a buck. This sucks. Like, this is shit. Like, I fucking hate it.
Yeah, this has not been great. It's definitely been a black eye in the tournament, and especially that Hiromu main event. That was just awful. The Ninja Mac match, he had a fake Ninja Mac that came out that he pinned or he submitted or whatever to quote unquote get the win. Then Ninja Mac had to, Ninja Mac had to run out from the back and still lost anyway. And that whole thing sucked. And yeah, that's the whole show as champion. Like, I don't know whose bright idea that was to, let's make show a champion right before Super Juniors and keep him the champion in the tournament. Just horrible.
I don't know, bro. I don't know. It's bad. Like, and this is not like, this is not us being like hyperbolic or, you know, shooting off hot takes and, you know, trying to, I don't know. This is not a clip that we're going to put on like YouTube and hope it does numbers, you know, or anything like that. This is just, it just sucks. Like it's super shitty. And, I don't know. This is another one of those things that you point to when people talk about the negative things that are going on in New Japan, and for all the positives that do exist, and they do exist. There are a lot of good things going on in the company, regardless of what the mainstream, you know, casual fans will say about it. This is one of those undeniable things that you have to point at and just be like, at the same time, show as champion, his matches suck, his gimmick sucks, and it's a low light of the tournament. And I get it. There are going to be those people that be like, well, you're not supposed to like him. He's a heel. And it's like, yeah, but I'm supposed to enjoy the show. Like, and this is worse. This is unenjoyable.
Right. But look at how many heels are in this tournament that are doing good work. Like Blake Christian, he's cheating, and I don't have the problem with his matches. You know, Drilla and Clark, you know, they're breaking the rules. They're being aggressive, and their matches have been fun. Like, you can be a heel and get heat and not have to do what Show's doing.
I do struggle, and this is my larger issue with House of Torture as a whole. I think that they have an important role in the company, for better or for worse. They've been positioned to a certain extent to facilitate, you know, this role that they sort of have. And it can be effective. It gets reactions. They can, you know, be put in a position in tournaments and stuff to where you are really lamenting the idea of them going to a final and then they get thwarted at the end or whatever. Where it really starts to become an issue is when they take up space in the main event scene of either the heavyweight or the junior divisions, because then now you're taking a mid-card act and putting it in the main event scene, and it lowers the credibility of the entire scene. And I understand there's a time and place for heeldom. There's a time and place for heat. The business isn't just always about like good guys overcoming and everything like that, but the heel still needs to have credibility. They still need to entertain, and you don't have any of that with Show these days. And I know this could sound like just some fanboys like bitching, but bro, go watch him and Hiromu and tell me you like that shit. And if you do, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't listen to this show, because we got good takes, like, and we got good taste, and that was shit.
Yeah, somebody shared a couple of years ago, like the 2019 like Show versus Dragon Lee, and I'm like,
oh, that match was so great.
How could you see that and then see Hiromu versus Show from this year and be like, this is how the Torture Show is so much better. This is a better output versus 2019 when he was having all these bangers against Dragon Lee and Shingo and all those guys.
Bro, Show and Kushida from previous tournaments, like one of my favorite, like low key Super Junior matches, and the one in this tournament wasn't. It's just so shitty. Like, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's really, really bad. And
I think that if you want these guys to be in this role, if you want to put a title on Show, if you want Evil to challenge for titles, that's all well and good. Then you have to adjust the gimmick accordingly. And in the past, other groups and other characters that have ascended in importance or in status with the company have had to adjust their work accordingly or their gimmick. And we're not seeing that. These guys are the same guys that they were in 2020.
Yeah. It's not great.
And it's not drawing money.
So let's move on to Ninja Mac, who's also 2-3, 4 points. Night 4, losing to Sho. Night 5 had a loss to Doki, and then night 6 he lost to Hiromu. So 3 losses in a row here for Ninja Mac.
So Ninja Mac, I mean, I think that he has been, eye-opening for so many people that haven't seen his work. He hasn't had that opportunity to go out there and have a classic main event style match or anything just yet. But in terms of like the outside guys really sort of endearing themselves to the crowds love this guy. The international fans are gravitating to what he does because he does cool flippy shit, and he's just highly entertaining. And I'm not surprised with where he is in the tournament thus far. I don't think anybody that saw him come in here expected him to have a high point total, but he's making a name for himself, and who knows if we'll continue to see him in New Japan down the line or not.
Yeah, I know there was rumors that, Liger was super high on him and wanted to get him into this tournament for a while now. And yeah, he's been a really fun to watch. Like you mentioned, he hasn't had that opportunity to have a full-on like blow away match. A lot of his matches have been sub 10 minutes. He had the shenanigan stuff with Sho, and even the Hiromu match, they had a little funny haha where they started off on the knees and they were doing a lot of grappling from the knees at the beginning of the matchup, and then it picked up kind of towards the end. But again, that was only 9 minutes and 10 seconds. So he hasn't been put in a true main event position, hasn't been given like 15 to 20 minutes to fully go out there and show what he can do. But I think he's done a great job of maximizing his minutes, and he's doing all the crazy flips and topes, the ninja special, that, cartwheel, that back handspring, Sasuke special type maneuver. He's going out there and doing that every night, and it's getting over. He's getting the ninja chance, and I think he looks cool. He does cool moves, and I would like to see him actually get an opportunity to have more of a main event style matchup.
I rarely do this, but one of the biggest mind-boggling things for me was the time when he was booked. It was for Supercard, and it was him versus Brian Cage on the pre-show. And it was like the first, and I don't know, to my understanding, I don't think he's worked for Tony Khan at all since then, right?
No, I don't think so.
And so I was like, oh, they're bringing in Ninja Mac. Like, this guy's a dynamo. And like my girlfriend who likes wrestling, I was like, she likes the flippy stuff. I was like, you have to see this guy. He's incredible. And then he just got squashed. He didn't do a single cool thing. He just was a jobber guy that just got squashed on a WrestleMania weekend against Brian Cage. And I was like, I don't know, Tony. Like, I would have let this guy do a handspring or something. Like, come on, bro.
Right. Let him flip for 5 minutes, and then Cage could squash him after that. But yeah, you have a guy that talented on your show. You let him show out.
Yeah, that was weird, but yeah, I don't know.
So he's been a lot of fun to watch. He's kind of on that bubble of not being able to advance. If he has to win his next 4 to get to 6-3 and be at 12 points if he has any shot of getting through.
Which I don't expect.
Yeah. Second to last here, Francesco Akira, also 2-3, 4 points. He lost to Kushida night 4, defeated Ishimori on night 5, and he lost to Drilla Maloney on night 6. And we talked about the news of his injury, and I think they're still assessing that, so he's going to miss the undercard tag on May 21st. But this sounds like this injury could be a shoot, and he could be out for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, and you have to wonder how that's going to affect the booking moving forward if that does in fact play out that way. I said earlier in the show, that it's just a situation where you want certain people to do well, but it's not possible for all of these guys to have super high point totals. I think Francesco Akira is a guy where I was sort of thinking maybe the company would, push him a bit here and kind of give him a higher point total. And who knows, maybe that is still going to play out. But thus far, he's on the lower end of the tournament, just hasn't played out in his favor so far. And then, with the injury, it's not necessarily looking the greatest at that point.
Yeah, at this point, he's again, just like Ninja Mac and Cho on that bubble of where they have to reel off 4 in a row to have any shot of advancing. And I think he's a guy that could potentially do that. But yeah, if he's injured, that's going to throw a whole monkey wrench in the thing. And I wonder how that's going to mess up the rest of the whole tournament and the booking there. Because, this is very, meticulous and, also very math oriented on who gets what win. And so him throwing off the rest of his points could really throw things off here.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, we kind of talked about the Drilla match and the Ishimori match, which we pretty much talked about all these matches already. But yeah, I thought he's looked really good, a lot of fire, and he's another guy that continues to get better every year. So moving on to the bottom of the block here, Dragon Daya. He's 0-5, 0 points. Night 4, lost to Hiromu. Night 5, losing to Drilla Maloney. And then night 6, losing to Doki. And we had a question from Just Bobby 294. Do you think Taguchi should have been replaced by a young lion instead because Dragon Daya is losing too much?
That's really not something I can say for sure one way or the other, because it kind of depends on what Dragon Gate and Dragon Daya are looking to get out of this opportunity. Oh, if you heard that, Jan, that's my dog. He decided to pop out while I was recording, and so anyone that's on the live stream can actually see him here. But anyways, whenever the Japanese scene weakens is the times where we start to see these companies work together more so. And in the past, Dragon Gate was extremely exclusionary. They didn't allow their guys to job outside. And we've started to see a trend where they're bucking that system. And you see Yamato on the outside. He's doing jobs. And I don't claim to be like a Dragon Gate expert or anything. I don't know that much about Dragon Daya. I couldn't tell you if this is a disservice to him. I mean, I think he's a very talented guy. He's much smaller than anybody else at the tournament so far. But this might be a case where like Dragon Gate's just getting a little bit of exposure. Their guy is getting an opportunity to have a learning experience, and they kind of came into it knowing that he was going to be eating these losses. I've seen some Dragon Gate fans that are upset about this, and maybe it's maybe it's warranted. I couldn't say with 100% confidence, but it depends on your mileage. Would you rather see like Shoma Kato eat all these losses this early in his career? Or would you rather see, a cool flippy guy from Dragon Gate take the losses? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed Dragon Daya in the tournament. He's been a lot of fun to watch. I mean, there have been short matches. He's been eating a lot of losses, but he goes out there and he does cool stuff. He's trained by Dragon Kid, who also was trained by Ultimo Dragon, and so he does do the Acai moonsault, and he does the around the world tilt-a-world head scissors thing, and so yeah, he's a lot of cool stuff, a lot of high energy, really fun to watch, and I'm sure if he was given more time, he would probably impress even more. But I think for what he's been called to do, look impressive in like 5 minutes and then lose, I think he's been doing really good.
Yeah, I agree. And who knows? Again, this might be something where we just lack the insight, and like Dragon Daya is, somebody that shows a lot of potential in Dragon Gate, and he wins more matches than what this company or what this tournament would, lead you to believe. And maybe they are doing a disservice to him. I don't know, but it's definitely not something that would be happening if Dragon Gate didn't agree to it.
Right. And I think the bigger one for them is just to get the exposure, and I'm sure they knew this was the plan because this was Taguchi's spot, and I'm sure this was probably going to be Taguchi's booking.
Very likely, yeah.
Well, that's going to wrap up our talk about nights 3 through 6. We have 4 more nights coming up this week. You want to run through those cards, young boy?
Yeah, I'm going to run through them, and we can we don't have to have an in-depth conversation each night, but we can kind of talk about the important matches we see, stuff we're looking forward to. So on I think tomorrow is night 7. Oh, you didn't put the dates here, but that's okay. Tomorrow is night 7, and we've got A block action going on. So in the A block, TJP will be taking on Kosei Fujita. Bushi will be facing off with Clark Connors. Hayata will be wrestling Blake Christian. The semi-main event is Teton versus Kevin Knight. And then your main event is Kanemaru versus El Desperado.
Yeah, nice little card there. Also a lot of history between Kanemaru and Despy and their Suzuki-gun days. I think Despy could get a win there to get to 8 points. I think TJP will probably beat Fujita to start his comeback. I think Hayata will get an upset win over Blake Christian to kind of keep Blake in line with Desperado. Teton or Kevin Knight, I think that's kind of anyone's match there. Probably going to go with Teton there. And then Bushi and Clark, I would go with Clark.
Yeah, I think Teton and Kevin Knight is the match I'm most looking forward to. Obviously, like you mentioned, Kanemaru and Desperado, that's an interesting one because they do have the history there. But at this stage of the tournament, I think Kanemaru is mainly just playing spoiler. But the Teton and Kevin Knight, that's one that actually has some high level meaning to it for later on in the tournament. Mm-hmm. Following that, we have night 8, which let me take a look here so that I can tell the people when it's happening. So night 8 is coming up the next day on the 22nd. We're going to have a and B block action. So the entire card is Super Junior matches. So Teton will be taking on Kosei Fujita. Robbie Eagles versus Dragon Dia. Third match, Kanemaru versus Bushi. Fourth match, Kushida versus Drill Maloney. Fifth match is Hayata versus Kevin Knight. Sixth match is Taiji Ishimori versus Ninja Mac. Seventh match is Despy versus Clark Connors. The eighth match is Hiromu versus Francesco Akira, if he's still in the tournament. Semi-main event is TJP versus Blake Christian. And then the main event is Doki versus Sho.
Yikes.
Yeah, so I think that this is an interesting lineup because, again, Sho sort of really needs to rebound at this point in the tournament as the champion, but they've got him going against Doki in the main event. That could either be it's probably going to be bad, but it could either be just bad or it could be really bad.
Yeah.
TJP versus Blake Christian is another one of those matches where maybe, I mean, this is do or die for TJP at this point. It's kind of like Ric Flair when he was, career threatening matches. Like if you lose, you're out. Him going against the number one guy in the block though, might be an indicator that your theory about him turning things around is accurate.
Yeah, I definitely think, I don't know, I feel like he's going to go on a run here, whether it's enough to get him to the semifinals or not. So yeah, I could definitely see, I can see Blake Christian going on a losing streak here and losing like probably his last 4 to 5 matches and ending at like 8 or 10 points, where TJP went at 10 points.
I'm intrigued about Kushida and Drill Maloney as well.
Yeah, that's another important matchup there. I think it could be a really good matchup if they give him some time.
The opener, Teton and Kosei Fujita, that's another good one. This card definitely isn't like the greatest card, but it's got some stuff on there that I'm definitely looking forward to.
Yeah.
And then night 9 is coming up this weekend. So on the 26th, And
That night
again,
nine's on the 25th.
oh, you know what? I'm looking at the I'm looking at New Japan World, so it says the 26th because it'll be the 26th for them.
Gotcha.
Okay, gotcha. Awesome. So again, all tournament action. So Kushida versus Ninja Mac will open the show. Second match, Hayata versus Kosei Fujita. Third match, Sho versus Dragon Dia. Fourth match, Bushi versus Blake Christian. Fifth match, Taiji Ishimori versus Drill Maloney. Sixth match, Kanemaru versus Teton. The seventh match is Doki versus Akira. Eighth match, Clark Connors versus Kevin Knight. And then your semi-main event is Hiromu versus Eagles. And the main event is TJP versus El Desperado.
Yeah, another solid lineup here. And again, TJP put in a big spot in the main event with Desperado. And, you know, again, if he can get a win, that's another big win there for him to get him into a potential semifinal spot. I think Hiromu.
Now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, are they going to really have this dude turn around and get into the semifinals of this tournament?
I do. I'm telling you, I think so. I mean, that's been a huge narrative of this tournament.
I mean, yes, it has, but I'm also like, he's a fucking loser. He lost 4 times.
And I love too, like they were in the one undercard where he was teaming with Callum Newman against LIJ, and they lost, and he's still trying to give Callum like a big pep speech, like, oh, you know, you gotta beat Naito, you gotta get in the G1. I'm just like, why should he be listening to you?
I love when Blake Christian tried to do the United Empire hand signal with them, and he pushed him. Yeah, so Eagles and Hiromu, they always have really good matches, and that's going to be a very important one for the B block, just in terms of tiebreakers. Kevin Knight and Clark Connors, they always have very good matches against one another. That match that they had, did you ever catch that show at the All-Star Junior Festival, the US one? I would recommend, if you ever got the chance and you just want to watch something, the match they had with one another is very good.
Cool.
Yeah. So good card. And then we'll go to night 10, which is going to be the last show that will happen before next week. This is showing as the 28th. Is that when it is for us?
I think so. I was looking at Cage Match, so maybe the dates on Cage Match might be wrong. And
no, they're probably right. I'm looking at New Japan World, and it usually gives the Japanese date. So it could be, it's either the 27th or the 28th. But anyways, on this night, it is going to be solely B block action. So Dragon Dia will be facing off with Ninja Mac. Kushida will take on Doki. Robbie Eagles will take on Francesco Akira. Semi-main event, Ishimori versus Sho. And then your main event is Hiromu versus Drilla Maloney.
Yeah, so that was the main event I was mentioning earlier. That's going to be a big shot for Drilla to really stand out and have a good match there with Hiromu. I could see that. I could see Drilla winning there to build some intrigue there to keep Hiromu having to scratch and claw to get some points there. Ishimori and Sho is probably going to be your typical, Bullet Club, we're in the same faction. Let's too sweet. Let's out-cheat each other kind of thing. Eagles and Akira. If Akira's good, should be a good matchup. Kushida and Doki should be fun. Dragon Dia and Ninja Mac, two of the most kind of flashy guys in the tournament facing off. That should be great. So yeah, overall, night 10 should be another solid night. And we got some undercard tag matches here as well. So yeah, this will be good run of the tournament here. And we had a question from Def Triangle 720. Do you think Vegeta and Robbie will get their shot at the junior tag titles at Dominion? And yeah, I think so. It seems like with them beating Clark and Drilla in the tournament, I think that, yeah, Vegeta and Eagles getting a shot at Dominion is a good call right there, and should be a really great matchup. I would have those guys win.
So as of right now, before we move on, what are you feeling? Who are you feeling is going to be the guys that go through with the way that everything's looking?
So from the A block, I definitely think Desperado is getting through. So I think it's going to be Desperado and TJP. So I think Despi will be A1, TJP will be A2. And then, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I begrudgingly somewhat agree with you, because when I'm looking at the guys that are in the A block with the higher point totals, it's like Blake Christian, Teton, Kevin Knight, Clark Connors, and then the rest of the guys like Kosei Fujita, Hayata, Kanemaru, Bushi, they're pretty much, they're very close to elimination. So it's like, yeah, you might be, I mean, it's tough. I mean, Blake Christian's definitely not a guy that I could see going through personally. And as much as I like Kevin Knight, I'd be very surprised if he went through. So you might be right about this TJ thing, because the only other guy I could see going through is like Teton right now.
Yeah, and I just don't think they're going to do that again. Have him in the semifinals or in the finals.
Really going to have to like work out perfectly for this guy to go through, because he's already had 4 losses. But this reminds me of the year that Yo went to the finals of the Super Juniors, because I thought that he was eliminated based on the math, and then he rung up a bunch of wins and went to the finals and everything.
Yeah, I think there's still a shot here with 5 matches left. If the right guys eat a number of losses and TJP wins through, I think he's going to slide through in that A2 slot.
I think on the other side of things, I think it's going to wind up being Hiromu and Ishimori.
Yeah,
I don't know. I can't say for sure, but it's just like those are the 2 guys that they would normally just put through,
Yeah, I mean, if we really want to, we could jump forward to the last few nights, and
I don't see why not.
Yeah, hold on, let's pull up Cage Match here and see what the last nights are. So I think night 11 is the last A block night. So on that night, Desperado's facing Hayata, TJP's facing Teton.
That's a big one.
So,
and we've already seen that he's facing some pretty big contenders in these next couple nights. So that would track.
Yeah, and Blake Christian's facing Fujita, which I don't think that's gonna mean anything. Kanemaru's facing Clark Connors. Don't think that's gonna mean anything. And then Bushi's facing Kevin Knight. I don't think that's gonna mean anything.
I think you might be surprised with the Kosei Fujita match, but yeah, man, you've kind of turned me around on this thing. I think maybe but then at that point, I don't know, but you're probably right. It's probably going to be TJP and Desperado there.
Then the last B block night in Korakuen is going to be Kushida versus Dragon Dia, Eagles versus Doki, Sho versus Francesco Akira, Ishimori versus Hiromu, and Drilla versus Ninja Mac.
Interesting. It's real. The scenarios. I mean, who knows? It really depends on what those scenarios look like, with Hiromu and Ishimori there going up again. But the most likely scenario is that one or the other is going to go through. So it probably will be Hiromu knocking out Ishimori, I would imagine.
Yeah, there is a situation where I don't know how the points will shake out, but it could be their match just determines first and second. Ishimori can lose and still be A2. That's what I was saying. I was like, it does depend on the scenario. Yeah.
And the math, or it could be, we've seen other weird stuff where it's like, if this guy wins, then, then he goes through. But if this guy wins, then they both go through. You just never know.
Yeah. But just based on that last B block night, if I had to pick one, I would pick Hiromu. And then I would probably say either the winner of Eagles and Doki or the winner of Sho and Akira.
Yeah.
If Akira is cleared.
With Dragon Dia going up against Kushida, that pretty much, I mean, Kushida's not going to be facing Dragon Die on the last night if he's going through.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Okay. Well, that gives us a little bit better projection of how things are going. Awesome. So next up, that's pretty much going to do it for our preview for next week. We're a little light on the news here, so tickets went on sale for Fantasticmania USA today. So we had a busy week. There might be other news. We didn't get to it. Whatever.
Yeah, if so, I'll cover it on a news update this week on the Patreon.
So let's jump into the questions and get out of here.
Yeah, Dr. Lariat says, at what point can we blame Gato, and what do we blame Naito for? Because there was that story that Obari wanted the young native talent to be pushed, and Gato pushed back, and now we got Blake Christian running the table. So why does Gato believe a Western-focused product is better for business?
Well, okay, so I wouldn't necessarily say that that's 100% the case. I mean, Super Juniors is something in and of itself that's wholly different from the rest of the booking of the company. It's always heavily featured foreigners and Westerners, but yeah, I could see how that would look given the Matt Riddles and fucking
Nick Nemeth.
Nick Nemeth and Ali, and then Mox, and then you turn around and it's like, oh, Blake Christian. But I'm sure. I never know with Duck. I don't know if he's being facetious or not, but he's a hard read. But yeah, that story, I alluded to that earlier. I don't know. I don't know if there is some sort of strife between the booking team or committee and management. I mean, it seemed to be that was the case with the Stardom stuff. So why wouldn't that also potentially be the case here? I don't know, but I don't know who to blame.
Yeah, and I think people are going a little too hard on the whole Blake Christian stuff. I don't think that's as egregious as, like you mentioned, like Nemeth and Riddle and Ali. So yeah, I'll see. There's definitely the booking. I think the booking. You start with the booking, so I'll blame Gato. But there's definitely, like you mentioned, a disconnect between management and booking.
I blame Tony Khan.
Discord Daddy says Kadani was apologizing to fans on X for what I imagine is not meeting fan expectations. He's asked for patience. What do you think we're waiting for?
What are you waiting for? That's a reference to I Know What You Did Last Summer. Fucking love. Bro, I watched that movie recently. It's unhinged. Like it does. In 2024, there's so many problematic things in that movie. It's not funny. Yeah, I did think that was an interesting remark, and I don't know. I don't know if it's just trying to appease people by just saying that, or setting false expectations, or maybe they have a plan. I don't know.
Yeah, and who knows exactly what he was talking about. Like, I don't know if he was talking about the whole, like, the fan club stuff, or the website still being down, or the lack of, the young guys being pushed. Who knows what he was talking about, but it sounds like there was some plan that's coming. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Barry Walsh says, either the new president of NOAH announced today that he wants to strengthen ties with WWE. Is this very short-sighted and against why the NJPW was partly set up anyway, or could it just be the Abima ties with both company ties to Abima?
You talked about this in the news update this week, I believe, right?
Yeah, I did.
So if you guys want our opinions on that, you need to go subscribe for $5.
Join the grade 1 or the IWGP tier.
I'm not going to unpack the whole thing here, but I will just say this. Anytime WWE is involved with outside companies, it never ends well for the outside company. And there are decades and decades of history that show us this.
Yeah. Barry also asked, last week in talking about Chota Umino, Josh had mentioned his best match have been against Moxley and Ospreay. And also talked about his inconsistency and the fact that something feels like it's missing from its overall character. With New Japan looking for the new Ace or new Okada, if Shooter takes too long to find that missing ingredient and more consistency, is it possible they found their new Sonata if he continues to only wrestle well against the best out there in not all his matches? Sonata and Finlay languished for too long and it hurt them when the trigger was finally pulled.
I hadn't thought of that. Here's the thing. That's an interesting point where I would say that I would disagree. Shota Umino has just so much more charisma and personality and character than Sonata does to connect with.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of way more potential with Umino than there ever was with Sonata. So I'd be very surprised if it gets to that level. But I mean, if they book him that way, it could happen.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that I hadn't really thought about.
Less Commission 7252 says Josh always gets asked the question about UFC or any boxing related sport other than wrestling. What do you like to watch, Jeremy? What interests you outside of wrestling?
Nothing.
I mean, honestly, I don't really watch a whole ton right now. I mean, I think, outside of wrestling, I watch a lot of stuff with my wife. We just got done watching, binging Brooklyn Nine-Nine on Netflix. So a lot of sitcom kind of stuff. I'll watch some like trashy TV with her. Love is Blind. You want to hit me up with that last season? I got some hot takes about that.
Bro, I fucking hate I tried Love is Blind. I just don't think it's that good. I just finished the 5th season of Temptation Island. Now that is good TV. So fucking ratchet. It is the best, bro.
Yeah. But I mean, like, outside of that, I just don't have the Super Juniors tournament. It's like I'm watching this and like AEW, and besides that, I'm not watching other whole other stuff right now.
We were living together. You watched a lot of anime.
Yeah, I haven't. I know the new season of My Hero has come out. I'm behind on that, so yeah, I need to catch up on My Hero Academia. Yeah. Besides that, I'm not really watching. I mean, I love like the MCU stuff, but that's kind of fell off.
Did you see X-Men 97?
I haven't. I've been meaning to watch that.
You gotta watch X-Men 97. It's top notch. Have I ever told you about Temptation Island?
I've heard you mention it. Didn't you watch like the UK version too?
No, that's Love Island.
Oh, Love Island.
Love Island's better. Love Island's much better, but Temptation Island is nice too. So this is the premise. 4 couples go to an island and they decide to put their love to the test. So they get tempted. So what happens is for like, I don't know, like a 4-week period, they go and live in separate mansions and then they bring in all of these hot singles of the opposite sex to live in the mansion with them. And they have to date these people and resist the temptation. and everything's being filmed. And like every so often they'll have like what they call a bonfire. So then like the producers will show a clip with literally no context behind it, just a clip of things that their partner has been saying or doing. And like, bro, it could like be them fucking, like, it's crazy.
Bro, that sounds messy.
It's so messy. They went through like the first 3 seasons were pretty good, but what happened is people we're watching the show and we're like, in the early days, you had like regular couples, but as time went on, people started realizing like maybe me and my girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever shouldn't be going on Temptation Island if we want to stay together. So they just kept getting worse and worse couples. And by this 5th season, it's like just trash people. And they were running out of ideas. Like, in fact, this show it was on USA. It almost got canceled. It got picked up by Netflix, picked it up. And so it's going to be on Netflix for the next season. So trust me when I tell you, like, I'm on this early because once it hits Netflix and people find out about Temptation Island, it's gonna be a huge thing. But they introduced a new concept this season called I think it's like the intimacy light. So basically what it is everyone's chilling in the mansion, and anytime one of the people's partners is getting intimate and crossing the line, whether that's just making out or anything beyond that, the red light at the other house goes off, and it's a giant globe. So like everyone just be chilling, having a great night, and then like one of their boyfriends or girlfriends is off in the other house doing some stuff, and the red light comes on, and bro, people break down, they start crying, and you don't even know if that's your person or someone else. So like people just start free. It's the best, bro. I love it.
All right, might have to give that a run.
I love Temptation Island. It's so bad.
So questions here from Def Triangle 720. What do you think New Japan should avoid doing in the second half of the year?
Oh boy.
Bad booking.
Yeah, man. I like it's really not that complicated. I just want to see the best wrestlers wrestle each other on big shows for the titles in great matches. It's not that hard.
Yeah. It's a very simple formula.
Don't put the shitty wrestlers in the big spots.
Done.
I understand, and there's probably a lot more that people could say and blah, blah, blah. But like, I'm going to keep it a buck with you. Like this is across the board. It doesn't matter if they're domestic or an outside talent. If they're not top notch, I don't really want to see them in the top spots, So what do I mean by that? I don't want to see Naito in the top spot anymore. You know why? Because he's broken down. The same way I don't want to see Nick Nemeth or Evil in the top spot. One's domestic, one's an outsider. I don't really care about the optics of it. I don't really care about the politics of it or who the fans' allegiances are to. It's very simple. Give me the best fucking wrestlers. Push your best guys and put them in the top spots so we can have the fucking bangers. Like that's all you got to do. It's not that hard.
Yeah, like Zach and Shingo would be like my world title rivalry this year.
Zach, Shingo, Hanare,
Tsuji,
Kid, Tsuji, Umino,
Cobb.
Cobb. Like you got a lot of talent over there. Hiromu, Despy. Like, come on, bro. What are we doing?
I also asked, do you think New Japan could help the tag division by looking at how Hunter booked the tag division in NXT 2016 by having FTR being a top heel team with strong in-ring and interesting stories of DIY, American Alpha, etc.?
I don't know, right? I didn't watch that shit.
NXT was fun. 2016 also, that tag division was a lot of fun with FTR and American Alpha and DIY and all those teams, but I don't necessarily think he has to watch NXT. He just needs to actually care about the tag division and not put it on the belt on Chase and Kenta. Stop doing multiple four-ways and quick title changes and unify the titles.
I was listening to some podcast. I don't know what it was. I can't recall. It was one of the New Japan podcasts. I wish I could give them credit, but they said something along the lines of like, if Clark Connor or if Alex Coughlin hadn't got hurt, and let's say hypothetically him and Gabe were in the spot with Chase Owens and Kenta, we'd probably have a whole different like attitude about this entire year of tag team wrestling in New Japan.
Definitely. And we've seen this in the past. Like, when we started, it was like War Machine, Killer Elite Squad, and
GOD.
Yeah, GOD. Like those were the three teams involved, and I mean those were good teams, and they did hot potato. But like now you throw in like Chase and Kenta in there, and you got ELP and Hikuleo and TMDK, and some of those teams are good. But yeah, Chase and Kenta really drags things down. I asked, do you think Finley should hold the title till Wrestle Kingdom or lose it before then?
What title?
The
white?
Yeah,
the white?
Yeah, the global.
I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. Yeah, honestly, it doesn't matter to me. Be better, Finley.
I don't know if he needs to go to the Dome, but I do think that title does at this point need a established title run. So if you want him to run it like through the fall, I mean, he could drop it before the Dome, but I guess G1's coming up. So, I mean, he probably should go into the Dome as a champion. Then his last question, he says, if Hanare wins, should they wait to have a unification match with Gabe Kidd? After their first match, it has a big fight feel to it, and it could be a good match to have at the Dome.
I don't know. Should they wait? I don't see why they would wait. I just do it now.
Yeah, I mean, so if Hanare beats Shingo, that's Dominion. I mean, it would probably have to wait until after G1, at least, at that point, to then do open.
Depending.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not gonna map it out necessarily, but it does feel like I don't know. What do you think? Because I'm trying to, like, it's late and I'm trying to think of like the mental picture of what the timing of the schedule is, and I'm just not sure.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that big match at the Dome, but I feel like there is a lot of heat there with Hanare having that injury and coming back. And so I think, yeah, if you could, I think the New Japan Soul Tour, I think, is happening before G1. So potentially you could do it there. But I mean, it would cool to give them a big spotlight stage and do it at the Tokyo Dome and have Hanare, have a long never title run, and then they do this big, open weight unification. Last two questions here from Hawaiian Punch PV. Thoughts on Usyk's performance against Fury?
You didn't watch this fight, right?
No.
Okay. Yeah, man. Very, very, very impressive, and a great fight. And Usyk's too shifty. I was very nervous in those middle rounds, especially from like round 4 to 6, where, or like 4 to 7, I would say, where Fury really gave him a lot of trouble, especially with the rear uppercut, and just he hurt Usyk a couple times there, and I was very nervous about that, the way he was kind of boxing him from the outside and everything. But Usyk is very, very special, and he fought a great game plan, and he changed levels, shifted side to side, and he threw overhands, and he hurt this dude in the 9th round. But even in the early rounds, with the body work that he was doing and just his movement, like, yeah, Usyk's incredible. And the last time somebody won the world title in a fight where they were this oversized was like Max Baer when he beat Primo Carnera in like the 30s. Like we're talking about, like, it's huge. And I mean, the only other example I can think of in modern times is like Holyfield or Tyson when they were beating up the big guys when they were undersized heavyweights. So yeah, it's very, very, very special. And yeah, Usyk's the man. He fucking dethroned Tyson Fury. And I had 115, 112 as my scorecard. I had Usyk up. So
nice. Then he follows up with, how special is the top 3 pound for pound in boxing right now? We have arguably the greatest European boxer, the greatest Japanese boxer, and the greatest switch hitter.
I think that there's a very strong argument that Inui is the greatest Japanese fighter, boxer of all time. For European, that is tough. I really would have to go back into the history books, but I think that Usyk ranks for sure. I don't know where he ranks, and I'd have to think about that. In terms of greatest switch hitter, Terrence Crawford is like up there, like probably one of the top 2 or 3, but like I still got Marvin Hagler as the greatest switch hitter of all time. But putting all that aside, I mean, you got 3 guys in the top 3 pound for pound. All of them have won undisputed titles in 2 weight classes in the 4-belt era, which is like unprecedented. And, whichever one you right now, I don't know. I don't know if Usyk's number 1. I don't know if Inui's number 1. It's a tough call, but yeah, we're living in a time of greatness in boxing.
Nice. Well, that's going to wrap things up. Still want to keep recommended match on hold?
Yeah, I want to do that shit.
Yeah, there's a lot of tournament matches to watch.
A lot of tournaments to watch.
All right, well, that's going to wrap things up. Next week, we'll be back to continue our coverage of Best of the Super Juniors. So remember, if you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, you can sign up at patreon.com/KIStrongstyle. A lot of bonus content going up there, so make sure you check all of that out. And you can also make a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure to connect with us on social media. On X, follow us at KI Strong Style, at Social Suplex, and at Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, follow us at facebook.com/Social Suplex and the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy. Y'all just Keeping It Strong Style. On YouTube, we are at Social Suplex. Join our Social Suplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. You can email me, Jeremy, at socialsuplex.com. And check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted with Rich Latta and James Boyd. All Things Elite with Floyd in Austin. Imps WWE Adventure with The Implications, Matthew Mayer. Wrestling Art with Chris Slings. Tunnel Talk with Allie, Ann, and Leah. And the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.